Hello and welcome to a very special episode of the BitSocket podcast. I am Prompto.
I am Lightning.
I can't believe you just hit record and then start doing it.
That's terrifying.
Aye. Is this how you won the award? Of course.
This is it, it's professional.
Well, how we won the award was Joe can give a phenomenal hand job.
Should I do my intro?
Yeah, do it.
Hi guys, I'm Barry. Normally I have BitSocket come on my podcast, but I've come to your podcast to rip you in your own home. So,
what's your Final Fantasy name though?
Yuffie? I'm Yuffie.
That's a pretty good one to be.
And we've also got another special guest, Andy.
Hello. I guess Final Fantasy intros go for me. I want to say I'm a big tough guy like Barrett, but I'm kind of just like Vivi or whatever.
Vivi's cool.
You can be, you know, those other mages that are stacked, the big...
Oh, yeah, very into them. Or Moogle. I like Moogles.
Cool.
Which one?
Stiltskin in Final Fantasy IX. He was really fun.
No. Can I change my answer? What's the name of the guy
Yes.
in... Right. No, different answer, right. You know when you go into the club in Final Fantasy VII and there's the guy who's like, call me daddy?
Oh.
And you get in the bath with him and his 7 pals.
Yeah.
Is his name Bobby or something?
Bobby. Right,
He says Bubby a lot.
I'm
but
Bubby.
His name is
Bubby.
something else.
All right,
Oh, that's
fuck it.
amazing.
I'm Bubby.
See, when you look through the keyhole and President Shinra's doing, like, he's dressed up as a king
Yeah.
and it's playing the Sephiroth music and that. That's
It's
fucking wild.
Do you know, we recently did a stream of
Final Fantasy VII.
Final Fantasy VII, which you can see on our YouTube channel, our awful escape from Midgar. And we went in there, we did the bath scene, and then just left. We just did it. We'd never seen it before.
It's the most Twin Peaks thing outside the Twin
Yeah,
Peaks is the Honeybee Inn.
Yeah.
I don't think they even put it there. I think they built the game around that.
There's for any nuts listening, there's some real good beta Honeybee Inn stuff on the internet from like when it looked completely different.
Alright, really?
And it's like a proper host club. Like you go in, it has pictures of the lassies up on the wall. And,
Oh, wow.
and obviously, I think.
Like Yakuza then?
And well, as I'm sure you know, at the moment any Japanese game or host club when it comes to an international market, they're like, no. they will not understand what this means.
Yeah,
It's a bunch of people standing on the
Do
end.
the big X thing.
The very first time I went to Japan, not knowing the cultural sensitivity of it, when we were in Akihabara, me and my mate tried to take a picture of some maids that were flying for their cafe. We got the big X. The big X. Like, the big Gomenasai.
X going to give it to you.
If you're wondering why we're talking so much about Final Fantasy, it's because we have been celebrating Final Fantasy month here at BitSocket, and we are doing a special podcast with a couple of special guests to celebrate the franchise. And what we're going to do is we're going to come up with a definitive list of the best Final Fantasy games, from worst to best between us. Because between us, I think we've all played all the games.
Played all
I don't
the
think
games.
Andy has played all of them, and he's like Final Fantasy mega fan. I've played most of them. Barry, how many of the Final Fantasy games have you played?
I'm sorry, Scott's gesturing to the pencils.
Oh no.
So I can keep track.
Oh yeah, you keep track of the list. In fact, give me one as well.
Because I've played the least number of Final Fantasies here, so
I
I'm going to
had
do
a-
the most with my pen.
I had a very strange moment where I thought I'd played most of them. And then I vividly remember playing Final Fantasy III. I'm doing this in air quotes because I played some weird Game Boy game that claimed to be Final Fantasy III, but looking back on it, it absolutely was not. Unless there is a... You played a guy that kind of like Anubis.
I think I know. I know you're talking because there was Final Fantasy. It was either Final Fantasy Legend 3 or Final Fantasy Adventure 3
That might
for the
be
Game
it.
Boy, and
That might be
that
it.
was my first Final Fantasy game.
That might be it.
It's actually Saga, but it was called Final Fantasy in the West, and it's like you time travel. You start off in the future. It's for the 3 wee kids, and you go back to the past to try and save the future. You're in a big time machine and
I
stuff.
just remember a guy that looked like Anubis. I don't know.
Did you buy it from the market?
No, it was on like
Was it like, you know,
it was on a multi-cart. It was on a multi-cart.
okay.
It was
Yeah.
on a multi-cart.
It was like one of those Pokemon games where like Ash says fuck every so often.
Was it like Sonic 6
had that
for the
one.
Game Boy?
That
Team Rocket called me a retard.
what is it? There's like a Vietnam Pokemon bot on Twitter that just like tweets lines of dialogue from Vietnamese versions of Pokemon. It's amazing.
So we're going to go through the entire main Final Fantasy
Main
series,
line.
not all the games because that would take us a couple of months. But yeah, our Final Fantasy credentials are that between us we've played all the games, and one of us hasn't played all.
What
of them.
about
the 13s?
Aye.
Except-
Are we
Well,
gonna talk
we're only
I've
going to
got
go
it.
into
I've got it
core.
covered there.
Are we going to talk about sequels of numbered?
We can talk about them, but they're not going to be part of the list. Do you just want to give a wee plug to your respective podcasts at all?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. You don't want to mention.
If anyone doesn't know, I like to think I'm from the dark half of Scottish games industry. I don't even talk about fucking games anymore. I'm not a known game person anymore.
You're a good boy.
Were you ever?
Nah, I mean that's my story. I'm going to stick to it. I'm from a YouTube channel called Pleasureland. We have some podcasts on there, and we have a guy that's terrible at Dark Souls on there.
Yeah,
please come and subscribe to Pleasureland.
The other night when we streamed Final Fantasy VII, we actually checked with Richie to make sure he wasn't streaming at the same time, because that would have eaten up all our views.
He was at one point on Twitch. He was the most viewed Dark Souls stream on all of Twitch.
Oh my god!
Someone came in from Korea, was like, "Hi from Korea."
Amazing.
And then immediately left, and then everyone was like, "You lost your Korean audience."
And Andy, you've not got a podcast yet.
But so this week hopefully this week I'm launching a podcast about women in history, which I've called Yas Queen. It's just about women that I've found really remarkable in history, and I'm sure you'll all really like it, I hope, but if you don't, then okay, cool. Great.
But women in history in games.
Women in history in games, yes. So I'm going to do a 20-part series on Aerith versus Ares. And then I'm going to tell her to shut up. So that's pretty much it. That's why you should listen to Yas Queen.
Okay, plugging out of the way, let's get started. So, let's take you back to...
The plugins never really finished.
Let's take you back
to... sell all the t-shirts, on your own podcast! I've done what I came to do.
Right, let's go back to 1987, the release of the first Final Fantasy game for the NES, which I'm pretty sure none of us have actually played it on.
No, not on the NES.
Because it was re-released for the Game Boy Advance.
I would have played it on the Mini NES if I could have got one.
Yeah.
Someone wouldn't sell me theirs.
You have a child coming still?
I don't think yours arrived, did it, Scott?
What would you do if you went to see the baby but it was a Mini NES? Would you be even happier?
Sell it for 120 quid on eBay.
That's more than a baby. It's more than a baby's worth.
So, Final Fantasy 1 released
pennies for a baby. I'm sorry, Joe, I'm sorry.
As you can see, this is going to take a while. Final Fantasy released for the NES, but it's been re-released on quite a few consoles since then. I've played it on the Game Boy Advance.
I think it was a PC emulator I played it on back in the day.
The original NES version, or...?
I would have been, yeah, I think so. Or some sort of port, I'm not sure. Right. You know how we download things from these dodgy websites?
That compilation 1 and 2, that came out on PSP
PS1,
as well.
PS1, PSP.
Oh,
no, the PS1 one, it was just Final Fantasy 1.
There's that, was it Dawn of Souls?
Dawn of Souls.
Did that make it to PSP?
It was just Game Boy Advance.
Right,
PSP ones were released separately. So.
Oh, right, okay.
And I think it was Final Fantasy... was that Anthology or something? The one that was the PS1 release and had the FMV intro and all that. So yeah,
it's like I think the cool thing about FF1 is it establishes one of the themes that's recurrent in Final Fantasy is like there's 4 things, and you need to go. It's 4 crystals, and it's like that's kind of that's a forgotten thing now almost.
Yeah,
I think like when the Theatrhythm, the rhythm games came out, they were like, let's plug the original, get Chaos and all that stuff back in there.
Yeah.
That kind of established that the most boring of Final Fantasy things. But it was the 80s, it's fine.
Well, what I like about Final Fantasy 1, and I've only just recently started playing it for the first time, is just how it takes everything you recognise about Final Fantasy and modern RPGs, but just it's the simple version of it. You know, you start off with 4 characters. You can choose in the Game Boy Advance version. You can choose between 6 roles for them, but the main roles are it's like warrior, thief, white mage, black mage. So you've got your 2 fighters, you've got your cura, and you've got your sort of damaging magic as well.
Well, what I mean, was there anything else besides Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest? Was there anything else that did establish
the
JRPG, or was it?
They were the first ones in Japan that did it, because they brought they brought the Dungeons and Dragons thing to Japan, and they sort of made it palatable for Japanese taste.
Even in that first Final Fantasy, it's not all horses and knights and castles and that. There's all that kind of space stuff going on.
It's that Japanese idea of,
because like a lot of people talk about. They always talk about 7 as the one that really introduced sci-fi to the series. It's like it's always been sci-fi.
Like 6 starts off literally with robots.
It's amazing.
It's the whole thing has always been like a total sci-fi. Because a lot of people think it's hard. There's like hard fantasy, but it really isn't that.
Yeah.
But I guess it is as much as, like I said, knights and castles and that. But you also there's a fucking cactus in there. Things looks like an angry penguin or something.
How much have you played of Final Fantasy 1?
I've finished it. It was sort of, I would say, the year between high school and university. I just sat and played all the Final Fantasy games because I didn't have a life.
Did you take a gap year?
Not quite. I went to college, which was the same thing.
I went to college.
I went to college, which is essentially a paid gap year. So I just spent most of that time not going to college and sitting in my pants and playing all the Final Fantasy games, and I played the tactics games and anything that I hadn't played before. And the thing that I loved so much about 1 is that it's probably, of all of them, is the truest of a role-playing game because your characters are really blank.
Yeah.
So you get to put... that's why one of the things I love about role-playing is you put so much of yourself behind them. So that's one of the reasons I really loved it. And obviously you get more defined characters as the series goes on, but it's wonderful for that kind of thing.
If you remade Final Fantasy 1 but with like an Oblivion-style character maker,
oh yeah,
you put yourself in
specifically
an Oblivion style. Or Oblivion.
Or how I would imagine myself as a strong female character. So
Yeah.
What I like about Final Fantasy 1 is it's really hard, but it's also pretty fair with it as well. Like, if you don't grind, you will get decimated when you go into dungeons and try and take on any of the bosses at all.
Well, difficulty in JRPGs is such an abstract concept.
Yeah.
It's hard because even JRPGs that I know are hard, it's really hard for me to pin down what it is about it that's hard.
Yeah.
Because something where you just need to go and grind a few levels until you can easily beat the boss isn't really difficulty. But there's a weird kind of untenable thing.
But I'd say, I feel like in modern RPGs and adventure games, you sort of follow the breadcrumb trail, whereas in Final Fantasy 1 and a few of the earlier ones, you sort of have to make your own adventure a wee while. You have to, when you get to the first wee bit, you have to walk around that for a wee bit and just, there's a fight, and that's the game.
As opposed to like 13, which is the thing that just happens to you while you lie there on your couch.
We'll get to 13
Tears
later.
streaming down your face.
We'll get to 13 later. Right, the rules of the list are that we're going to go through each game and then we'll decide which order they go as we go on through the game. So obviously, as Final Fantasy 1 is the first, it is still the number one on our
It
list.
deserves to be high up.
Yeah, definitely.
It's number one on our list right now, but we'll see.
I wrote a list earlier on, there was a lot of this is as good as this, which
Right.
is as good as this, which
Well,
is better
but
than this.
there's no, it's got to be better or worse than. It's got to be better or worse than. Which brings us to Final Fantasy 2. Which, like Final Fantasy 1, was released in NES and has had a few remakes since then, a few re-releases. Now, I sadly have not played it. Andy, you've played it.
Yeah.
Scott, have you played it?
I've played 3 Final Fantasy games, so no.
Right.
I'm going to get comfy for all of these conversations.
Okay. Well, you can drive
I feel
us.
there's a lot of pressure.
I've had an
right now.
idea though for what those of you who've played the games could do.
What is that?
Right. So if you could sum up each Final Fantasy in 3 words.
Oh, right. Well, I've not played
Final Fantasy 2.
There we go. Okay.
Have you played Final Fantasy 2, Barry?
No.
No, have you not? Right.
But my 3 words would be sequel to first.
I meant
And
something
that
more
works for all of them.
Yeah.
something more descriptive.
2 out of the old Final Fantasy games, 2 is meant to be the sort of black sheep of the family. Like Link's Adventure, it sort of changed up the format on the second game.
Is 2 the one where there's like that super rare translation of it? Like there was something. It's like one of the rarest NES games. There's only like a prototype of it where it was like a partially translated
Alright, I never knew that.
thing of it that was like a big deal.
This
take
is
that. We
why
need to-
you're
I need
here.
to
the
fact check,
issue
man.
of the-
I need to fact check.
No,
these
2
things.
was the one that famously you could level up very quickly by fighting your own characters.
Yes.
So
That's kind of
that's
cool.
it. Yeah. So it's like
That's a good idea.
they try something new with the leveling system in it, but it sort of broke the game. Which
It's
is sort
funny
of
to think, like,
admirable, but
You want to try something new with just your second game.
yeah, well, that was the thing back in the NES because there was no series conventions for these things. So like Zelda, the second game's completely different from the first one, and Final Fantasy 2, obviously, it's still a top-down RPG, but they changed the leveling system, the sort of the main core of the game.
The fact that we have 30 years of hindsight now means that we can rip these ideas to shreds.
Yeah.
So you try something new, it was a fucking disaster.
So Andy, you've played Final Fantasy 2.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on me right
Tell
now.
us about
It's
it.
all you,
Right,
man.
is it
I just
bet-
want to know what happens at the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Right, you can back off. Because that was 11 years ago now, and I don't remember very much
Is
of
it
it.
better than the first or second?
I don't think it's better than the first
Right.
one, no.
Okay. Well, in that case, it goes under.
Because I didn't finish it.
Is Final Fantasy 2 the
That's
one
the
with
thing, like-
Ferion in it?
Christ,
See the or because I only know them from the was it?
Dissidia.
I only know a lot of
yeah.
these like a lot of those characters from Dissidia.
I'm not talking about
Ferion.
Yeah, I've played Dissidia.
Right, that brings us to Final Fantasy 3, which is the one that out of the old Final
We
Fantasy.
I feel like we even include Final Fantasy 2. We're
No,
just like
we just put
it's
it
a
in
game that came out. It's
no, but
No, it's essentially,
it's on the list.
potentially, it could be the worst
you
of
could
the
get
Final
someone to
Fantasy.
write in. Someone we can find a big FF2 fan.
Yeah,
Get into
This
the
is- they don't
submission.
exist. That's the thing. A big FF2
Yeah, I don't
fans
think they do.
exist.
Final Fantasy 3, on the other hand, I think,
Yeah.
because I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy 3.
Yeah,
It's the last that had the real sort of, that kind of format of here's 4 things
Yeah.
to do. But I loved, you could change everything up as you're going through the game and work out what parties were working for you. And I loved the characters as well. They were a lot of fun.
It was the first game to have the job system where
Yeah.
you could switch job at any time, and that was
It's a good system.
yeah, it is, and it's tough though because like if you get to a part and you've not leveled up, say you need a red, you need a specific type of major.
Everyone needs a red mage.
Yeah,
It's the
but
best mage.
say you've not,
Yeah.
say you need one, but you've not actually level one up, you're going to have to go back and grind for that.
Grinding was a big part of Final Fantasy III, and that was a pain. But then I remember I got a 3D, the 3D remake version for my Kindle of all things, and that's what I would do on public transport, would grind, and then at home I would play it properly.
I had it for my phone, the 3D remake. I think it was originally out for the DS, but that's the version I've played.
I had it for the DS.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's pretty similar to the old one. It's just the graphics were different.
Yeah,
because it's still rock hard.
Well, I remember the stories being the same. Just it looked a lot more fun.
Yeah.
I know a lot of folk don't love that kind of chibi style that they went for those Final
I like
Fantasy
it.
remakes.
I like how they've stuck with it for the handheld games as well.
Well, it led into what Bravely Default is basically.
Yeah.
So it's fine. It's good.
Mm.
Yeah, 3's really good though.
Yeah. It's also
three's going to have that problem though, where even though it's a completely different game, in my head, because of the job system, 3's always like a slightly inferior version of 5 to me.
Yeah,
like I always think of 3 and I'm like, well, 5's better. But,
well, that's what we'll be finding out.
sorry, spoilers.
So
stick with the system.
So let's go quickly right. So is Final Fantasy 3 out of the 3 games we played so far the best Final Fantasy?
No.
Oh.
Well,
so out of the
3
1,
games
2,
we
and 3,
played so
yeah,
far,
yeah,
I think it's better than Final Fantasy
Okay, yeah, it's better than 1 and 2, I would
so
say.
Final Fantasy 3 assumes first spot, Final Fantasy 1 becomes second, and Final Fantasy 2 becomes third. The first big change.
What's next on the list then?
Next up, surprise, surprise, is Final Fantasy 4.
I fucking love Final Fantasy.
So do I.
4.
It's one of my favourites.
It's to me, it's the first game that was like in the series. It was like Final Fantasy is the big fucking RPG series. I mean, Dragon Quest. It's hard because we never had Dragon Quest. I mean, we never had Final Fantasy until this came out as Final Fantasy 2.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is a game.
Oh wait,
that really
this is Final
established-
Fantasy. Right, wait there.
Oh, no,
If this is Final
If
Fantasy
we start
2,
getting into the European names in it's like
Joe, pass me that rubber.
But I mean, I think that this is the first Final Fantasy that established the series in the West, and for good reason. It's fucking.
It's
great.
wonderful. I mean, the characters are so brilliant. Even your sort of trademark annoying characters, Palom and Polum, are just. I love them. I love them so much, and you get so attached. It was the first game out of all of them where you really felt like you were playing as a group of people who became friends. They weren't a bunch of individual characters who all just happened to get to the end together. They were just this group of people, and you felt everything that they lost and went through together. It's fantastic.
It wasn't until the SNES era of RPGs, I feel, that they started taking story, character development seriously in terms of plot, rather than just meeting your character.
I think a lot of series, though, because of starting in the NES, they'd had that time to develop, so they got the idea of, right, what's a good combat system, what's a good map, now what is that next is, because you look at the SNES era in general, there's so many. I mean, that's Chrono Trigger.
Yeah.
That's like still held as one of the best JRPGs ever made, but you think, how long ago did that come out on the SNES? So it's that time when games were really, the people who'd maybe played Final Fantasy games in school, or maybe like coming into college, they're now at the time where they're then making the games as well, so it's kind of that growth in terms of that.
The thing is as well, I mean, because 16-bit era was, because Final Fantasy was starting to take a departure from that, I think it pushed a lot of developers to do better with their RPGs too, which is why you wouldn't get an Earthbound now.
No.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Well,
it's
I
just the
suppose
climate that game existed in.
Yeah.
And you had Chrono Trigger and Terra Nigma and like all these amazing SNES JRPGs that came out in like a 4 or 5 year window.
Yeah.
It was just like a total, I don't want to say a golden age because it's a shitty fallback, but it was a real kind of renaissance for the genre, because it was a popular genre anyway.
Yeah.
Like Dragon Quest especially is like you don't really appreciate it over here because only recently we've started getting the games. But Dragon Quest is way bigger in Japan. I'd say it's like a proper cultural thing.
Yeah.
Like folk have Dragon Quest shit up on their mantelpiece and it's like a big deal. But yeah, Final Fantasy I guess is the Western champion.
So with 4, they didn't use the job system they used from 3. What was the unique part of 4 then? Was it the plot or was it the...
The thing I liked about it is it kind of had those different locales, like the underworld, and then you go to space at the end as well. Right? It was like a moon race.
I can
and stuff
count
like
on
that.
one hand how many you don't go to space in at some point.
It's and again, you were saying it's the the characters are what makes it unique, but it's also the first I think that had a really well defined soundtrack. I know it's all just this you're listening to it on the SNES or whatever, and it's on MIDI kind of stuff. But at the same time, it's beautifully crafted music.
Yeah, well, the SNES sound chip. Well, Barry, you know.
I know. Very good. Very good. Yeah. It's got a good airship as well.
Yeah.
You can always measure
the game starts off on an airship.
Well, you can measure a Final Fantasy game's merit against how good the airship is. So it's got a really good airship.
Right. Okay. Well.
Okay.
Where does it sit on? Is it better than it? Is it better than Final Fantasy?
Joe, have you played 4?
I've played 4. Yeah, I had it for the PSP.
Okay. So, would you say 4 is the best
of the ones?
Of the ones,
so far,
yeah,
yes.
Of course,
yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't put it as higher than 3, but that's just.
Oh, I definitely would. I think it's a good starting point for the series as well.
Yeah.
Something we've not touched on yet. I think if you're going to start, 4 would be a good one because it also has that weird sequel.
Oh my god, the sequel was really upsetting.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't.
I never played it. I bought the PSP one because I was like, oh, it's got the sequel as well. But then I read after I bought it that the sequel's not worth.
I also played the one that had the voice acting and stuff. The 3D the voice acting, and it was atrocious.
I forgot they did that.
You have these great characters who sound like they're being squeezed or something. They've just got these really high pitched weird voices.
Was 4 like I'm probably talking shite? Was 4 the one that was recently re-released on consoles, and it looked dreadful, like on phones?
4 and 6 have had that treatment,
and it looked bad.
I'm willing to defend that iOS port. I hated
it
at first, but then I bought it, and it's actually alright.
Can you play it? Can you play it in landscape or just portrait?
You can play in landscape.
Then it's better than the Dragon Quest.
The DS version of FF4 is really good as well.
Yeah, well, I've not played that one. But
4 is the one with Golbez in it, eh?
Yeah.
Is it?
Like that's just bringing back memories and you.
There's honestly, so many parts of 4, 5, and 6 get merged into my head.
Yeah.
Because I always used to play them on a SNES emulator and just hammer the fast forward key.
Oh, space.
Yeah. So it's big portions of those games. So X-Death, is he Golbez? I can't remember.
That's how we played Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. 4 has some of the best characters in the series as well.
I would say so.
Rydia's whole arc thing is amazing.
Yep.
The old boy, what's his name, that uses Meteo, he gets killed.
Christ on a bike.
Anyway, that guy, he's really good. I can't remember his name, he's really good.
Again, it has been a really long time since I played it, but it is wonderful.
Kane's good, Cecil's good, there's some good characters in there.
Okay, so after 4 was released, soon after was released Final Fantasy V.
I've not played this one and put my hands up. I've not played
Which
it.
one's 5? Because I may have played it.
So
5's on with Butts, man.
Yeah.
What?
Butts, the main character, was localised as Butt.
I think I'd remember that, so I'm going to say...
I don't remember a whole lot of 5. I remember not enjoying it nearly as much as 4 or 6.
The thing about 5 is 4 characters. It's a kind of refinement of the old Final Fantasy stuff where it's really kind of reined in. It's got the job system.
Yeah, they reintroduced the job system and then some, because there's how many jobs can you get in it? Because in 3 there was only
they added even more at the Game Boy Advance one, so there's quite a lot.
Yeah.
But
what was his name meant to be?
Bart's.
They probably didn't want to copyright issues with the Simpsons.
But you play as the same 4 characters until
the party doesn't change then.
Well, a mini spoiler is you build up all this camaraderie and kind of attachment to the characters, and then one of the characters dies and is replaced by one of their children.
Oh, right.
Which is kind of cool.
Cool. Oh nice. Man, right.
Butts Junior.
Okay, I need to go back and try 5 again. I think
5's really good. It has Gilgamesh in it, and the Gilgamesh battle is is one of the things that they then redo in later Final Fantasy games is the Gilgamesh battle from 5.
Gilgamesh hates Bart's, right? I remember this from. I just recently played World of
I'd like
Fantasy.
a T-shirt that says
doing it really well. It's
Gilgamesh hates butts.
He's like a recurrent kind of side boss.
Yeah,
he's like Ultros in 6. Gilgamesh is kind of like that.
He's Gilgamesh coming back in Final Fantasy.
See I'm going to jump ahead here because I don't know if we'll even get to talk about it. But one of the best bits in Final Fantasy VIII is when you fight Safer at the end of Disc 3, maybe.
Yes.
And Odin comes and at the start of the battle, and you're like, oh my god, I got so lucky. Odin's coming against a boss. And he fucking cuts Odin in half.
Yeah.
But then the sword flies up into the air, and you see Gilgamesh's big arm grabbing the sword out of the sky.
And it's not till later that Gilgamesh comes back down and helps you.
Good,
it's amazing.
Man.
It's
hype.
So Final Fantasy V.
Where does it sit on?
So is it better than Final Fantasy IV?
I love 5. For me, 5 is. I'm torn because it has better music and some better stuff, but I don't know. I'd say it's as good as 4. I struggle to separate them.
I would say 4 is better, but I think I actually want to go back and try 5 again now.
Right.
So,
but listen, we need to do this tonight. So 5 is under 4 in the list.
Okay.
So 5 becomes 2.
Yeah. And then 2 becomes 1. Next.
So just to give you a quick recap of where we're sitting
I'd say
right
5
now.
better than 3.
So-
Have you played 5, Joe?
No, I've not played 5.
So right now,
Go
at number
on,
1
yeah.
is Final Fantasy IV, followed by Final Fantasy V. Final Fantasy 3 is in third. Final Fantasy 1 is in 4th. And bringing up the rear, Final Fantasy 2.
So next is what a lot of Final Fantasy fans say is the best of the old school Final Fantasy games, which is Final Fantasy VI.
I've played the first 3 hours of this.
Hey!
And I thought it was quite good.
I'd probably agree, like, that it's of all of the earlier ones up until you get your 7, it's the best of them. But it's probably going to be when I discuss 7 and 9 a bit later. That for all the reasons, all the technical reasons, it's the best. But 4 is my favourite sentimentally.
Right.
But 6 is incredible. Just that opening music and. Throughout the music throughout the whole game is
So
wonderful.
your Chocobo and you get the Mode 7 happening on the world map. Again, I'm going to use all these cliches, but 6 is really where the series kind of grew up. I think it has the darkest of all the storylines thus far.
Well, 6 is the one famously where the bad guy technically wins.
I know Kefka wins, destroys the world.
Yeah.
Kefka's amazing. He's probably my favourite antagonist from Final Fantasy.
You wouldn't think a weird clown-looking guy would be the best sort of villain, but
I know.
he's easily one of the best
He's
villains.
not even strong. He's like an average magic user who's just really conniving and through sheer tenacity of will destroys the world.
Am I right in saying the main character is a woman in Final Fantasy VI?
No, you start off as Harbin.
start off as
Yeah, I'd
Terra.
say she is the main
yeah,
character.
I would say she's the main character, but the people will say these days that Lightning was the first female Final Fantasy character, because you played her the whole way through pretty much, with the exception of little side bits. But Terra is, you lose her at different parts of the game. And
Terra's really good as well. I mean, because she has that kind of trope of amnesiac main character, but then when she gets her memories back and she's like, look at me turn into a big monster, I think it's pretty fucking cool.
I'm a kick-ass Esper.
And then
she also does Mode 7 flying around the map.
I love Mode 7.
2 airships in Final Fantasy VI, by the way.
This is your
2
system coming into play.
But there's lots of good stuff in FF6, like Ultros, like we said, like Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
Ultros is a big recurrent sort of meta-series character, like a recurrent antagonist in... Because there's a time skip in Final Fantasy VI, which is nothing new at this point, but seeing all your old characters, all your old friends come back after the time skip is pretty good. Because basically you recruit... It's 2 halves, there's like the World of Balance and the World of Ruin. And you recruit all your party, and then when the world gets destroyed, you lose them. And then the first part, the second half, is going and like finding and then re-recruiting all your party, which is very, very nice.
And you can do that. I'm not even saying it's not linear, isn't it? It's not.
You don't have to recruit everyone.
Yeah, you can do it. It's sort of like in Chrono Trigger. You can sort of approach it.
You can fart about.
Yeah.
That uses like the way Espers or summons work is you junction like you equip a summon and then you learn spells from the summon. But the summon's not really cool as well.
And there's robots in it.
What was the
Mech.
What was the first one to have summons in it in Final Fantasy games? Were they still from the very beginning? Or?
I'm pretty sure they would have been.
Yeah.
No, I've not finished one yet, so so that'll be why I didn't know.
We'll take a break and we'll listen to another Final Fantasy podcast.
Summon's such a core concept. Because remember when you're Wii and you're playing it, the summons were always like your favourite thing.
Was your big deal, wasn't it? You would save up your MP and that was it.
Save up all your pocket money. Buy a summons. Right, so Final Fantasy VI.
Where does it sit?
Is
it better than Final Fantasy?
Is it the best one of all the ones we've discussed so far?
I love it. I don't love it as much as 4, but it doesn't mean it's not the best.
Okay.
I feel like
to be very diplomatic.
It's not my ultimate favourite, but I do think it's the best of the SNES ones and arguably one of the best.
Then it goes to the top of the list.
So goes to the top of the list.
Because that's 90s kind of classic 16-bit Square at their absolute peak. Like this is, right before Chrono Trigger as well, basically. So.
And if you're going to play it nowadays, I would definitely recommend tracking down the Game Boy Advance version.
Absolutely.
Aye, because they fixed a bunch of stuff and added a bunch of stuff. Yeah. Same for 5. The Game Boy Advance version of 5 is amazing.
The version I played was the PlayStation 1 version.
The cutscenes
that came with it had some little bits, but it had a Final Fantasy X demo, I think, which is why I got it.
Oh, I've got that one.
Yeah, which is why I bought it. But then I was like, that was my first introduction to early Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
and it was one of my favorite. Like just one. It was a great holiday, summer holiday.
Yeah,
because I didn't have friends.
I couldn't figure out how because when I played FF7, that was the first one I played. And there was a character at the start of that called Wedge, and there's a character at the start of FF6 called Wedge, and I couldn't, because I was only in school, I was like 10, I couldn't work out how they were. I was like, is this the same? So it's actually a sequel. I'm very confused.
The only thing that carried over was Wedge. Well, talking about Final Fantasy VII, let's talk about Final Fantasy VII.
Yay!
The first Final Fantasy game on the PlayStation 1.
You can tell.
Should have been on the N64, but we won't talk about that.
I love that FF6 tech demo for the N64.
Yeah, I've seen I've only seen screenshots. I've never actually seen clips of it.
I've never seen it.
There's a wee clip of it on YouTube.
I never knew there was
one thing I remembered, you were talking about the FF6 GBA. There's a patch so you can put all the SNES audio. There's a patch so you can put all the SNES audio back in the GBA ROM because the GBA has a terrible sound chip.
Yeah. But do you not need a specific emulator to play with that? Or?
No, I bagged up my flash card and play it on my
your
Game Boy Micro.
Alright, so how does that work then? If it's the same sound chip, do you just have different instrumentation?
I don't know. I think it must just.
I think this is interesting.
Sorry.
However, Andy, tell us your memories of Final Fantasy VII.
So Final Fantasy VII was I mean, for a lot of people our age, Final Fantasy VII is probably the first one that they played.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was a little nerdy boy in school and didn't have any friends. So Final Fantasy VII was this great thing for me. I picked it up, and it was the first game I'd ever played where I felt like I was having a story told to me. But not only that, again, I was saying earlier about 4 being the first where you had like a group of friends who were going on an adventure together. Final Fantasy VII for me, being a young boy who was weird and didn't really fit in, was this great game where I felt like I had these even just kind of virtual friends, and I was going on this incredible adventure with them. And obviously, you get to name Cloud has been Andy since 1997. Yeah, since FIFA 97, and so I went on this incredible adventure, and I did it so many times before 8 even came out. I think I played Final Fantasy VII through at least 20 times, and that's not an exaggeration. It's just what I did. Yeah. I had a friend in school. I say friend, another boy in school who played the game, and he'd written on his cover, Graham Thompson, Master of Final Fantasy VII. And
get him on the podcast.
So good.
No. And so I set out to utterly destroy him. So again, we're finding out why I didn't have friends in school. But he was like, but I can't be Emerald Weapon, so I did everything. And then went in and gave him my memory card and said, I'd be Emerald Weapon. Try and top that. God. So... that's pretty much it, and I just loved those characters, and I still love those characters, and I love that music and everything, even the crappy little sprites, which they are now. I still love it.
Yeah, Final Fantasy VII, it was the first JRPG that I remember seeing the box of in a shop when I was young, and seeing like the style of it and thinking that looks cool, like just him with the spiky hair and the big sword, and in the back you could see like snowballs and all. I was like, snowballs as well.
Yeah. And there was Midgar. I think Midgar was the big picture on the back.
Yeah. Final Fantasy VII exists in a time where both steampunk and cyberpunk hadn't been
ruined,
shagged to death, basically by everyone.
I just remember seeing it and thinking that looks really cool, but because I owned an N64 and I was a Zelda freak, I was adamant that it was shit compared to Zelda until I finally played it, and then I realised how wrong I was.
There are many reasons why, to me, Final Fantasy VII is the best one. It has the best battle system.
Because
agreed. It's the first one that really made limit breaks part of it, as opposed to just a thing that sometimes happens.
Yeah.
Arguably, I don't think there's been a good limit break system since 7.
I'm there with you on that.
Because 8 especially was cast aura and you might get a limit break. It's weird. And then the materia system was amazing because there was so much of it.
Yeah.
There's so much magic, there's so many summons. I think it must have the most. That 7 or 8 must have the most summons.
I mean, you could switch your team in based on the characters that you loved the most as well, rather than just
because materia had stat boosting properties as well. It's like there was so many options. The weapon designs were all amazing. And it was the first one where, apart from 6, where you had non-human characters that were actually characters. Because Amaro, the big Yeti guy in FF6, and Mog and that, they weren't really full formed characters, but Red 13. And I don't know how to say Kate Seth's actual name because it's something like
Kate Seth.
No, it's some weird Irish thing.
I'm right in saying that it was a bad translation, and he's been Scottish since day one, and Advent Children wasn't just throwing a spanner into everything.
Oh man, I forgot he had a Scottish accent until I
watched that freaked me out to no end. And someone told me recently that actually Kate Seth was just badly translated, because there's a few translation issues which I've overlooked over the years, and that Kate Seth was just straight up.
It's quite similar to, there is actually a Scottish monster, the Banshee and stuff. There is and it's spelt very similar.
It's based on a Celtic thing. I don't know how to say it.
Okay. I feel like I should know this, being Scottish history guy, but
I think there is some partial relation to.
I'm looking up the pronunciation right now.
Okay.
I think we're getting lots of details.
Just a little bit.
Anyway,
so 7 for me was the first It's the first JRPG I'd ever played.
And you finished it as well.
And I completed it as well.
Oh my god, I don't think I've ever heard of you finishing a game.
Thank you.
It had 3 discs as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like you got it and you felt like this was value for money.
It had mini games.
Yeah,
mini
which I
games.
played Relentless Submarine game and the
forgot about the
snowboarding.
motorbiking bit, like until I saw Scott play it at double speed the other night. It
was really bad.
Yeah.
It felt like the first game that felt, even though like you saying it felt cinematic, and you know what that means in games now,
Aye.
and what it means in games now is totally different. But back then, when you had all that FMV, all the cutscenes, even just the stuff when the characters are sitting in, like near the beginning,
And you're in
when
train,
Avalanche and they're all just sitting on the train, and just the kind of camera angles it used, like when you're entering in from the back and coming forward, that just totally felt like nothing else you'd played like that.
The world is totally unparalleled. It's like they've tried to do locations in Final Fantasy games since that you're just like that you almost can't conceive of. But think of like Gold Saucer. It's like that is insane. It's a big tree in the desert. It's a theme park.
It's so much fun as well. Like that music and all the little bits you get to do in the play when you're with Aerith, whatever. I don't care. Later in the game is so much fun. Or Tifa or Yuffie or whoever decides to take your hand in that day.
To me, it has the most magic out of any of the Final Fantasies, but it also, the important thing is it has the most solid game backing it up. I'd say the system is super robust, it works, and it's still fun to play. Which can't be said about a lot of, especially PS1 JRPGs.
Definitely.
You're just sitting there pressing.
I tried to go back to Wild Arms 1 recently.
Yeah,
and I struggled
same,
with
man.
it, and because I love that game.
All Wild Arms is pressing the button, summon a turtle now and again. Pressing the button.
I love everything about 7. I still cry. Let's just admit it right now. I still cry when she dies.
When Sephiroth dies.
When Sephiroth dies.
Yeah, really love them. If you're going to play Final Fantasy VII nowadays, I would definitely recommend the PS4 version because it's really,
I think it's the same version they've got on Steam.
As well. It's really bloody nice.
But Steam doesn't. They haven't updated the Steam version to have the boosters that the PlayStation 4
version
version has.
So you can cheat in the PlayStation 4.
You can cheat in the PlayStation 4, but I mean, just as far as playing, it looks nice and clean. It doesn't have that PS1 shakiness to it anymore. It's definitely the way you go nowadays.
And they didn't mess up the Steam version. Might still have the messed up soundtrack,
the fucked up music.
Yeah, what the hell?
Really bad.
I mean, I've got a modded version on Steam that I've updated the character sprites and stuff for, and it's a lot of effort to maintain. But I replaced the music with the orchestral versions. But actually, when I played through it again on the PS4 recently, it was the most like playing it for the first time that I'd felt in a long time. So.
It doesn't have that weird thing where the PAL version had like 2 frames of animation for their victory poses. Like it's a bit smoother on that.
Oh, just that big sword spinning round.
It was
so good.
I'm gonna every time I got a cool thing that not a lot of people might know about, I'm going to interject.
Go on.
But the international, we had Final Fantasy VII International. That's a thing that happened from FF7 onwards, as we often got the international. But the Japanese version of international comes with a 4th disc.
Right.
That has a bunch of extra stuff on it.
Oh.
Like kind of renders of weapons and stuff like that. And so if you can get a hold of it, it's worth burning off and having a shot on something. Because it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, check that out.
So
where we think it goes in the order then? I'm just going to assume
it's my favourite one, so I'm...
I
think it's the best.
Are we saying
one.
It's better than 6 then? I mean, I enjoy it more than 6.
I'd say better than 6.
I know it's a cliche saying that, but
it's a cliche, but then it's a cliche because it's true.
Yeah.
It's like when everybody like rags on people for liking that one song, like that Smith song, like you're like everybody likes that Smith song. It can't be your favorite song, and it's like, well, do you know what? It's a really good song, so it's going to be my favorite song. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
Would you think, Scott?
Yeah, I think it's the best. So far, it's the best one.
Right,
FF7 is my favourite song.
FF7
because 6 is a smart arse answer. 6 is the one. I think 6 is the best actually. From someone who's never even seen a SNES in their life.
So now we're going to Final Fantasy.
Saved by the Bell, Japan edition.
I'm pretty sure that this is going to end the trend of the
consensus
of the latest Final Fantasy being the best one.
Well, you'd be wrong.
I'm going to put my hands up. I've never played 8, which I know is shocking.
You'd fucking love 8, Joe. Look at that haircut.
Yeah, I know.
That's Final Fantasy 8.
You've been living Final Fantasy 8.
I love Final Fantasy 8, but it's not a great game. And in fact, I remember... Okay, so back to the earliest when I first got it, I pressed my head against the radiator in the morning, so I got a really hot forehead. And went downstairs like, Mom, I'm not well. and stayed off school and played
good.
like through so much of the game that day.
That's good.
But I got to a point, and one of the big points of we were all friends, but we forgot about it. It's one of the big plot twists in the game. And that's what I used to put when I had my action figures when I was wee. Oh, we were friends, but we forgot about it. It's crap. I'm really sorry.
It's weapons grade anime bullshit. Like, it makes no fucking sense.
But I still love it. I mean, it's got great music, and again, some of the locales are great. I love the little French town, and I love
the big technological city. Drive your car around.
And
driving a car was pretty good.
You can drive a car.
I'm
all about this game.
You see, but after a while, you can drive the school.
What?
The school becomes your airship, which means it really should be really high up in Barry's list.
Let's be honest, school
Ragnarok
and
is a very good airship.
The Ragnarok is
it's Final Fantasy VIII. Even though 7 was my first one, for some reason I've got such fond memories of 8. Even though it was...
Did you notice the rag on it because you hated the last disc or something? Though?
Right,
because you can't get in any of the towns.
Oh yeah,
it's like there's a magic spell. I'm sorry.
It's the one that's always made me wary of 4th discs.
None of the towns. You can only go into the Chocobo Forest.
It's almost, for me, it feels like it. I think if, for example, if 8 was to come out now, it would be celebrated as this kind of it's almost closer to this Japanese idea of like it is closer in line with anime, which now is probably more prevalent over here.
8 is what started the theme of Final Fantasy being a boyfriend simulator, basically. It was the first one that really, where Nomura was like, right, Cloud was kind of a bishy, Sephiroth was kind of a bishy, but now it's going to be Harajuku laddies from now until the end of time. And that was fine, but the problem was that I didn't give a shit about any of them. It's like all the characters were so over-designed, but their personalities were garbage.
I liked Renoa and I love Quistis. I think they're both
Which one's the
wonderful
teacher?
characters.
Was one of
Quistis.
Was she the one in the
was
like
just a wee bit
orange?
more stern?
She's a bit too down on herself in the game, and I was like, no, that's what I'm here for, to be down on myself. So why are you doing it?
I like Renoa as well. She shoots a dog.
She's amazing.
There's that bit where she's flying through space in the spacesuit. That's
the
worst.
That stressed me out because I'm like, she should be dead. I understand science enough at 13 years old to understand she should be dead.
What's the name of the guy with the cowboy hat?
Irvin.
Right, Irvin. See, I liked him because he's named after Irvin, the town.
No, he's the worst. He just turns up and he's all rapey and weird, and I just hated him.
He's got a shotgun. I had a toy of him.
He's basically McCree. He's McCree for the previous generation.
But he's the only one that remembered they were all besties back in the orphanage.
Yeah.
So that's nonsense.
Zell's pretty good because he likes the hot dogs, but again, it reaches a point in the game where it's just like, we only care about Squall now.
Yeah, even then, he doesn't... I don't like Squall that much.
Does he not have a controversial fighting system or something?
The junction system, because you would get, if you went to all this effort of harvesting high level spells really early on in the game so you could get good stats, you would never use them. So I barely use magic in FF8, whereas magic's my favourite part of Final Fantasy games. Like, otherwise it's just like final whatever.
The system is broken pretty early on. You can junction 100 of any spell to your strength, and you can basically one-shot enemies. You can get Squall's ultimate weapon on disc 1.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate because there's so much good stuff in there, especially the summons.
So is it like
the summons in Final Fantasy are fantastic.
Is it like
the
Final
game
Fantasy 2 then,
broken,
where like their own
totally
system
broken.
sort of bites it in the arse a wee bit?
A wee bit.
Yeah.
It probably is to a degree. Like, they've hit such a big high with 7 that it probably gave them carte blanche to try something.
I feel bad because there's so much of it that is great. I mean, the music is incredible. Like, that opening scene as well is just...
And the FMV takes another big...
it takes a big step up.
I mean, that last disc... I mean, the problem I've always disliked the last disc is it's just a boss fight. There's a wee bit of preamble, and then it does the Metroid thing of you get all your abilities stripped away. So you can't do magic, you can't do summons, you can just attack to begin with, and then you've got to go fight different...
You have to split into teams, don't forget.
Oh, you've got to split into teams.
All your under-leveled garbage.
And then...
At least with 7, your character's leveled with you.
Aye.
Yeah.
And even the team bit was kind of optional. You didn't need to sweat.
Yeah, I only switched once and then went, why am I even doing this? These guys are crap.
The problem I had with it was, like, I was such a high level and had so much stuff that I got items. I went and got my items, and then I was like, I'll give the boss a shot and see how hard it is. And I beat her first time. So I was like, I beat her without summons, without magic, and I was like, it felt like such an I was like, this should have felt harder.
Yeah.
But it just felt like such an anticlimax.
See, when you go to there's a bit where you go to some research facility in Bahamut's at the bottom, but to get there you have to run down a big spiral staircase.
Yeah.
And I didn't realise that if you walk, you don't get in any fights.
Yeah, because it's when the lights aren't flashing or something like that.
But I spent 20 hours just fighting the hard enemies.
Because they are hard,
the
and then Bahamut's
really
like, whatever.
You fight him like Marlboro uses bad breath, and then you're dead. And That's it. It's really badly balanced, that game.
Yeah.
It's a shame.
So this is where choosing the order is going to be more difficult. So instead of just saying is it the best, we're going to go for the bottom. So is it wait. Is it better than Final Fantasy 2?
Aye.
Yeah.
Is it better than Final Fantasy 1?
I'd say so.
Yeah.
Is it better than Final Fantasy 3? Yeah?
Yeah.
Is it better than 5?
No.
So it goes between 5 and 3.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd
that's where we're
say
going to put it in.
I mean, the internal workings of Square are the least transparent thing ever, and on the face of it, like a lot of Final Fantasy games have the same producers, the same directors. But to me, Final Fantasy is the beginning of the rot. Right. It's where Nomura got too big a seat at the table, and substance took a massive hit for style. Right. And 9 is kind of the antithesis of that. But for some reason,
I was getting ready to defend.
Yeah, so that's what 9. We're going into that. So 9 is, I think, it's where a lot of people see it as the return of classic Final Fantasy, especially with the style of it. Like
it's a good mix because it's classic Final Fantasy meets, air quotes, grown up Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, I said 7 is my favourite, but 7 is, I guess, sentimentally my favourite, but 9 is just this incredible game from start to finish, and it's so, it's light, it's really heavy, and it's wonderful. And again, you have this great cast of characters who, none of them feel underdeveloped. I mean, maybe Amarant, he's a bit dull, but even he's got his own little revengey side story. And you've got Eiko and Vivi and Garnet, who goes silent for half a disc. But at the same time, there are all these wonderful characters, and even the sub characters like Dr. Tot, and everything about it is wonderful. And the music. See, when you climb you climb Clara, and the rat lady people are doing their dance, and it just Eternal Harvest is the name of the song, and you think, oh, this is all going to work, everything's going to be great. And it cuts, and then there's General Beatrix, and her theme's playing in the background, and you're just like, oh, this game is brilliant. That was the first moment that I thought this game is incredible. And since then, I always look forward to that bit, but there's so many other bits that I love.
I think it's amazing when you compare the look of Final Fantasy IX to the look of Final Fantasy VII, because 9 is so much more technologically advanced graphically. It just looks it's like, Vagrant Story and all that. It just like it pushes the PS1 beyond what you think it's capable of. I think it looks
I think 8 really dropped the ball on that.
Yeah. It did. I've got a modded version of my PC where I've updated all the sprites to look really clean.
Because on a telly, 8's unplayable. I tell this story on every podcast I've ever been on, but I was playing FF8 and my mom came in and she was like, what's that? The graphics are terrible. And I was looking at it and I was like, you're right. It's like Squall walking up to the camera. It's like, what is that? It's just like, you can't pick out any of his features or anything.
But 9 looks really, really
9
nice.
is so clear and lovely. And I know, obviously, they've upped it for the PlayStation 4 version, which looks gorgeous. But even the version on PlayStation 1 looked beautiful. Oh no, PC version. Sorry.
I was going to say
PC version.
Yeah.
PC.
It's like it seems like such a cop out to make a fantasy game basically a fairy tale, but for them to do it in a way and make it genuinely magical, it takes a lot of fucking talent.
It definitely does.
It's a really, really good game with so much depth. And just lots to do as well, and lots to kind of keep you guessing, and that is fucking great.
They changed the battle system a bit for that one, didn't they? Because they brought it back to 4 characters.
Back to 4 characters and a job system as well. So you had to be careful which characters you took with you, because you could end up, I've just got 2 white mages, a black mage, and a thief, and be dead in minutes.
You would never let yourself get in that situation, surely.
A thief? Look, they're the 4 best characters as far as... Well, with the exception of Freya, because Freya's friggin' amazing. They're my 4 favourite characters.
Were they set jobs? Could you swap them around? So it was just you had set people?
Yeah.
But they had set rules to them.
I wasn't in love with the AP system. Like, I feel
no, because I felt like you would learn all these abilities and you wouldn't be able to use a lot of them.
Yeah, because you didn't have enough crystal things.
Yeah.
Good super boss in 9, Ozma. Very hard.
I only beat him, so obviously Final Fantasy came out, I was quite young, but I only beat Ozma when I was 22. So that was
nice.
That was difficult.
Same
same save.
Problem in 9 was there was a lot of hard bits in 9, especially like finding the ultimate weapon stuff. You really had to rely on a walkthrough. But the official Squaresoft walkthrough had big chunks missing.
Yeah.
Like the Prima one, because a lot of stuff was like, was it Play Online their thing was called? And it was like, to unlock this part of the guide, visit the Play Online website and type in this code. And it's like, you buy it now and the website's gone. It's like, great.
Was that Prima? Prima ones are usually pretty good.
Well, it was Prima that made the official ones, I think.
They must have been trying to encourage people to get online again.
So I had the 8 one and it was great, but the 9 one was terrible. Really bad.
So Final Fantasy IX, I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be kind of higher up in the list. So we'll start. Is it better than Final Fantasy? Is it right? Is it better than Final Fantasy 3? Is it better than? I think.
I see.
Yeah,
hands down.
Better than 8?
Oh yes.
Is it better than 5?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Better than 4?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Is it as good as? Is it better than 6?
I'd say it's as good as 6.
It's
so.
just, I mean, I'm gonna say yes, but that's only because, as I said, it is my favorite.
No, I'll go with that. I think it maybe
Well,
is.
yeah.
It's a bit more accomplished than 6. I'll
Is
say
it?
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to put it above 6 then.
It's very. I would say it's quite underrated as well. Of all the Final Fantasy games, it's the most that I've heard people say, "Oh, I've not played that one because I thought it looked a bit weird."
Right, so now
fucking Disney, man.
Yeah.
It's like
now
fucking-
we've finished the PlayStation 1 era.
It's a bit furry though. It's the furriest of all.
Is it?
It is a bit.
Sedan's
yeah.
a really good character, but that tail,
That
that tail and those cuffs.
Actually, right, we had a pal at school. Do you remember Richard Leach?
Yes.
I might be putting the name, we'll see. But
Is his
I
persona
hope
a
he
leech?
doesn't listen.
But he was great at drawing anime style art, and he drew his own characters and stuff like that. But he was obsessed with giving every one of them tails, like weird Zidane style tails, because he was obsessed with film.
Is it like Sonic people giving theirs like
Yeah.
big boobs or
So every
nappies?
character they
Chili
drew,
dogs.
every character drew, even ones that looked like just like human beings, he would just give them all tails. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was a weird phase.
You ever seen Dragon Ball, mate?
No.
Oh yeah, they are.
Yeah.
What? Oh, Dragon Ball.
See,
I think it's Dragon
see,
Ball.
Dalagassy's back.
Legacy.
He's back.
It's the Legacy.
He's back. That's the current arc. Is Future Trunks. He's come back.
The Legacy
Go and watch it,
is,
man.
of course, it was when I used to watch it in Chinese with my best
We told
pal.
a story on Two Good Boys, so
Oh,
I'm
did you?
sorry we've blown up for you, Joe.
Oh, fuck it. Oh well. Listen to Two Good Boys then. Right. So the PS1 era is finished, and Square heralded in the modern blockbuster RPG on the PlayStation 2 with Final Fantasy X.
Ha ha ha! I can't believe we both went for that at the same time.
Do you know?
I was going to go for Ride Z Shupa.
Yeah.
that guy's
Right,
the one.
Shupa.
He's like some Star Wars shit or
Right.
something. Like, oh god.
10 gets a lot of shit, but I adore it.
I love it, but
I love it
it's
too,
a
but
lot
it
from
deservedly
so-
gets a
it's
lot of
deservedly
shit.
Someone,
does, yeah.
I'm sure someone commented on it was either one of our videos or a podcast where we made fun of that,
Yeah.
and they said, "Do you not know that what his laugh was meant to be sarcastic?" I was like, but it was still
It's still
just badly
shit.
done.
Yeah.
We're
Do you know,
not
even
yeah.
World of Final Fantasy has made fun of it because there's a bit when Tidus starts going ha 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 ha, and I was killing myself at this. World of Final Fantasy is brilliant. Everybody play it right now. Anyway,
Apart from Barry, because I know that you hate it, so I can just tell that you hate it.
it's so much fun, but it's anime pish, but it's fun.
Final Fantasy X, I remember when it first came out, and I remember thinking they dropped the ball as far as the style of it went, because I remember thinking, alright, it's no longer cool. Like, Final Fantasy VII looked cool, Final Fantasy VIII, the art looked cool, 9 looked like that sort of classic fairy tale style thing, but Final Fantasy X just looked like, the main guy looked like Meg Ryan, on a beach somewhere.
I think,
it
a
no longer
lot of,
was cool.
I think a lot of what people think about Final Fantasy X has come from meeting other people who
Yeah.
didn't like it. Because for me, when Final Fantasy X came out, it was the first Final Fantasy on PlayStation 2, and it was the most excited I'd been about a video game in forever. And the opening, I didn't care what the characters looked like. I was actually really impressed with how the characters looked.
The opening,
Well,
yeah.
the actual opening
one.
with the two Xanarkin theme, and it's all of them around the campfire,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
brings you in 3/4 of the way through the game,
Yeah,
and
that's
I
good.
thought, wow, I love this. And I know then it jumps in, and you're like, oh, this is a bit weird, and these character voices are kind of annoying,
Oh,
but
kind of.
no, I've grown to love them, and I as I said,
Have you
just-
grown to love Cloister of Trials?
Oh,
Well,
those
only because
pushing-
I can do
pushing
them
those-
all in about a minute each now because I've
pushing
done them
those
so
fucking
many
blocks,
times.
putting
Like
the balls into the
getting
wall and all
the
that.
destruction spheres because of course that's how I'm
Oh,
playing
yeah,
it, so I
yeah.
could get anima, and which I never use because he's ugly and weird. I'm a Shiva person through and through.
So at the time when it came out, I was like,
we should do on our podcast where we rate all the Shivas.
Yeah,
at the time it came out, I just thought, oh god, this looks so bad, and I avoided playing it because I thought it looked just shit. But when the HD remake came out for PS4, I've played it since then, and I've grown to really like 10.
Yeah.
And bizarrely, I like the leveling up system. I quite like.
I
the
really
sphere-
enjoy
Sphere
it.
Grid's good.
Yeah.
The only downside of the Sphere Grid is you're given the illusion that you have different unique characters, but then you reach the point in the game where the Sphere Grid just wipes out all their traits.
yeah.
Which is a shame.
I like that in games, so I don't know what it is about. I quite like games where you can.
See, I don't.
Eventually, if playing the game enough, you can end up with a situation where all the characters can do anything that you want them to do.
Nah.
So, no, I
It
like
depends.
that.
I mean, it's not a game breaking thing for me. I really enjoy the fighting system.
Yeah.
It-
Oh, right, no, it's the leveling
Well, the
thing,
leveling
the fighting,
system,
yeah.
But how that translate into
Yeah.
having a multi sort of character thing is I really enjoy. Like,
I mean, did you ever try the
The advanced Sphere Grid.
Yes, the
Aye.
one where you,
Oh, yeah.
you'll start off.
I
at
mean, not the
same
first
point.
time. First
Aye,
time
the
I was
first time
playing
I
this
did-
by
I
the
did.
letter.
Aye. the fighting system though. They changed it back to sort of the old school turn-based rather than the ATV system.
See, I don't think this is going to be popular opinion, but I don't think it stands up really to the fighting system. I think it falls into the boring JRPG bracket now.
It does. Some of the fights really drag. Even just normal fights sometimes can really drag.
I know. Why is that? Because I fucking loved it first time I played it.
Same here, and now
not a dull moment.
I struggle with it a bit.
Yeah, and sometimes I find it hard to know what one of your characters is actually going to do well against enemies. Like, so, Orin, sometimes his sword is fucking amazing against it, but sometimes it's not. And it's not ever obvious what baddies are sort of susceptible to piercing damage or anything like that. And so there's a lot. It
requires you to use scan at the beginning of every battle, and you've got to. There's no like scan all, and there's no. It's a lot of spending time, and that's okay if that's what you're into. But eventually, it gets to the point with Final Fantasy X where you've heard them say, "Going to use lightning on a water type." That you're like, okay. Just let me do this. Please, God, let me do this.
I'm also, and I don't know if I'm sort of I'm in a minority saying this, but I don't like the summon system in 10, where you have to be unit, you have to summon, and while you've got the summon down, you have to play as it for a while, and then give it. I don't like it that much. I don't know what it is about it.
I liked it because it could really turn your battles. I think it gave you an extra character to throw at a hard boss, but also they had their own like overdrive moves, and they looked great. Yeah, no, they were a lot of fun to play that way.
I think. I see if it was just a case of like Final Fantasy VII, they came on and did a special move. I would like that better, but I didn't. I found it just dragged. I don't know what it was. It's just it made already long fights.
What's your favourite summon?
Shiva.
Really, you like Shiva?
Shiva. In 10, definitely Shiva, because I heard the animation for her Diamond Dust move is so cool. I just think it's awesome.
What about overall?
The coolest Shiva
is still your favourite.
Shiva probably
the motorbike I'm leaving.
The coolest Shiva is head to
Shiva motorbike, get out of here. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say that right now. 13 can...
Right.
Who's
I haven't swore
summon?
Yet, but...
I've not finished it yet, so I do not know the answer to that.
Just in general?
What, in general? Well, I don't... No, because the ones that I like are the ones from Fantasy 13, so... Like,
Doom Train's pretty good.
Doom Train is awesome, isn't he? I love Chocomog, because occasionally you got Fat Chocobo.
I
like Alexander, because he turns out to be the castle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was amazing, wasn't
it?
Really
fucking
good. We've talked about summons. Yeah. We've talked about battle systems. We've talked about voiceovers.
Yeah. Time for enemy skill.
You've not talked about Blitzball.
Oh right, Blitzball can suck it. When I was young, I got really into it, and I could actually play it.
Did you go down? Did you go down the park? Remember, we always used to go down the park and play Blitzball.
Yeah. No, I mean like
we're laughing. But I've seen folk in the meadows in Edinburgh play Quidditch, so it's not out of the realms of possibility.
Yeah.
I got really good at it, and I spent a lot of time going around the game and recruiting characters to play my Blitzball team. Like the original B-Sade Aurochs could fuck off, but I would, random girl in front of a shop somewhere, pressing square, and everybody find out if I could recruit them.
I thought I would love Blitzball, and when I did the tutorial, I was like, oh, this is great. It's like a football game that's for me. It's full of stats.
It's for me.
They fucked themselves because you never knew you needed something like that until Triple Triad, and then everything after that was like, well, it's not a card game with really good music, so
yeah,
that was it, wasn't it?
I just remember when I did the first major match in the Blitzball thing, and then I lost for some arbitrary reason. I thought this is bullshit. I just never touched it again.
Raging.
I only like to win. That's totally you, Joe.
I don't know anyone that's won the first Blitzball match. And I know you can win the first Blitzball match.
Joe's going home and starting a new game tonight.
Do it. Gonna win the Blitzball match for me, because I know you get the cup, and I feel very sad that my characters have never won the cup. And before we move on, I love Yuna. Yuna is one of my favourite Final Fantasy characters.
I like some of the characters are really good in
it. I think Riku's great. I love her voice actress. And
Barry's joined something.
Sign on, you go on.
Okay, I know we're only doing the main numbered Final Fantasies, but Final Fantasy X too is so good.
It's got the best and worst opening cutscene.
I'm sorry, to leave worst out of this. It is a magical girl anime with great J-pop and a great backing story to go with it. And it's a lot. It's about 90% mini games, but it's so much fun.
Barry, I think, is drawing me.
I made a picture for Scott. Is Joe getting upset at spike damage in Xenoblade? You can keep that.
There's a whole podcast we did. Thank you. Looks just
like please continue.
You've got my sad face and my wonky eyes just right.
Anyway, before everybody decides Final Fantasy X is the worst game ever made, I think Yuna's brilliant. I think the music is the music's probably the first. It's the first of them where I go, actually, it's got quite a lot of crap in it. It's got a lot of filler stuff. and it's not as good.
Oh man, see the music.
The redone music's
redone
not great.
Oh, I was going to say the opposite. I think it's better.
There's some of it I do think is better, but I think it feels a bit half-assed.
switched
It's got its
between the
great
two,
ones
and I
like
definitely-
Tuzanarkand and Eunice theme and stuff like that, which are just and even the Chamber of the Faith music is wonderful. But it
Am
gets
I
a
right in
bit-
saying 10's the one with the big, sexy blue cat man?
Kamari
Kamari
Ronson.
Ronson, yeah.
So is that where they
Hey.
went from? Because like in Final
pretty
Fantasy
good.
IX,
No, he's not really.
the kind of furry is kind of like, oh, he could be your wee brother. But this guy's like, no, he could
Yeah,
do
10
you
had
in.
some
You
good
know what I mean?
character designs, but it was the start of the whole belts thing.
Yeah,
Which
I
was
remember.
a play.
Well, I mean,
Like,
what Lulu's outfit is essentially belts.
belts now.
Yeah.
Right, Final Fantasy X then. Is it better than Final Fantasy 2?
Yes.
I was just before we move on.
Oh.
Something I want to say about 10
Right.
is see if you can get just a simple love story right. It's really hard to beat. In 10, the first time I played 10, I was so sucked in
Yeah.
to that bit. See when they're like winching in the water and that. I was in bits, man.
Yeah,
It's like, it's just
streaming.
fucking- so that
Even recently,
it's the first Final Fantasy X that I played that I was really like. Maybe I was at that age where I was feeling it, but I was like, it's quite emotional.
Is it better than Final Fantasy 1?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it better than Final Fantasy 3?
Yeah.
Better than 8?
I'd say it's as good as 8.
As good
Yeah.
as 8? I'm going to put it above 8.
Okay.
Okay,
Good.
I think that's
Above
fair.
it.
I think
10.
8 has a much better music.
It has
I'm trying to
8 has
take
better
everything
music.
into consideration here.
8 has better music. I think 10 has better characters overall.
You can make out
Yeah.
what you're doing.
There's
on
more
screen.
stuff to do in 10, to be fair.
Yeah.
Like the end
Yeah.
game's pretty huge. All the dark
Aeons and stuff.
like
That was great. As far as hard bosses go, the Dark Mega Sisters is just like I'm not even gonna bother.
the fucking Chocobo game where you had to run
Oh yeah,
And Calm
because that's how
Lines.
you got his
all the
Tita's
weapons.
ultimate
It's a
weapon.
point
yeah.
off for that. But the bottom of the list for annoyances.
Right, now we're getting into a problem because this is when Square decided to go online. So we're not. I don't think we're going to bother Final Fantasy.
I've not
11,
played
'cause none of us
11.
played it. It's different from a normal Final Fantasy game. It might be a main numbered one, but I don't think it quite counts.
I know folks have put hundreds of hours into it.
Yeah, I mean, it
but
only
it's
just shut down the servers it was either this year or last year, which is
I know.
crazy.
Yeah.
So honourable mention for 11, but none of us played it, and I don't think we're going to bother trying to think about where it goes in the list. So we'll just move straight on to the swan song of the PS2 era is Final Fantasy XII.
I think it's beautiful.
Mm.
I think it's a really strong, wonderful game. It's not like character wise, it's not as good as previous ones. I think
Yeah.
Ash is a great character, and Rabbit Lady, whose name I'm struggling to
Fran.
remember. Fran, classic
Fran.
Yeah, Fran's
classic
amazing.
Fran. Fran is a brilliant character, and even Balthier's okay. Like he's pretty much Pirate Babe.
Yeah.
People hate Van so much.
Oh,
He's
I
like
hate-
the
I
most
hate Van.
hated character.
I do hate Van, and I hate
But I don't know how you could hate somebody more than Tidus, because Tidus is a fucking arsehole.
and I hate. No, Tidus is fine.
Hey.
You get over him.
Mind Evil Tidus when he plays the organ.
Oh yeah,
It's pretty good. He's a man of many. He's multifaceted.
Final Fantasy XII was, I think, the first time I played an open world JRPG, and I mean, I know it's not really open world, but it's the idea where there's a lot of freedom and you can walk around and the monsters.
They
are
really
there
changed
on-
it up.
Yeah,
but it's great fun.
yeah.
Set in Ivalice as well.
Yeah,
Which is where Vagrant Story,
Yeah.
Final Fantasy Tactics,
Yeah.
all that
Mhm.
stuff's set.
Yeah.
And I-
Bravely Default, is that not?
No,
Partly
it's
set
not part of the
in.
evil.
No.
Alright.
From someone who
I
likes
think it is anyway.
tactics.
Oh man, you got me confused now.
No, I don't think it is.
No.
What for me, like, it's got that same thing that a lot of the end of the PS2 era games had. It was like, it looked astounding.
I know.
Didn't it?
Like
Yeah.
it was games like that, Okami.
Yeah.
What else was kind of near the end as
Right,
well?
well, God of War 2, I didn't
Yeah.
play it, but it looked fucking
Yeah.
amazing.
Dragon Quest VIII,
Dragon Quest VIII.
Rogue
Mhm.
Galaxy.
Yeah.
as well.
And there was like a bunch of games that came out near the end of the PS2 that just,
You felt you had a brand new console at the time because they just looked so
Yeah.
good. Right, yeah.
and so many of them came out. It almost felt like there was a glut of them.
Yeah.
Just these like, right, this is the swan song of
That's
this
why I held off
series.
on buying a PS3 for years, because PS2
I was a long
still
way
the
off
best.
getting a PS3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 12. What did you think of the fighting system? Because it was more like an MMO fighting system than
It's
anything
good.
else.
By that point, they were like, right, we need to change
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
the games, I don't want to say industry. Games were changing around what the JRPG was,
Yeah.
and I think they rolled the dice. And I don't think it paid off at the time, but I think looking back on it now, people are like,
Yeah.
So unfortunately, the way it goes with games like 12 at the time, people are like, no, I wanted fucking 7 again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now people are all, can't wait for the HD remake.
I
guys."
can't wait for the HD remake.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to giving it another shot. 'Cause
Yeah.
I only played like the first like few hours of Final Fantasy XII at the time. I remember watching our flatmate Simon play it for a while. Remember when he had it?
Yeah.
And I remember just really enjoying watching you play, and watching you play as well.
Yeah.
As well. And I thought it looked incredible, and I remember comparing it at the time to Dragon Quest VIII, which it was the old school fighting system in an open world sort of a JRPG thing, but Final Fantasy XII was something new.
It's probably the first one where I went, what the actual fuck is happening though?
Yeah.
Because it got... I mean, it's what essentially 13 is. It's the great mess of lore and story. But it's fine. I mean, I had a little bit of background because of playing the tactics games and stuff. But it's just, I can't go over how much I liked it. I mean, there are parts of it that I really dislike. But, I mean, the limit system in... sort of limit break system, in air quotes, for 12 was wonderful. It had these great, almost summon-style animations for each of the characters, and it was a lot of fun. And you really got sucked into the story of it.
They really reined in the aesthetic quite a bit. It was
Yeah.
a real focusing of the aesthetic, because the Final Fantasy X character designs and everything that came after Final Fantasy X, the character designs just got worse and worse and worse. And then Kingdom Hearts was happening all in the middle of this too, and it was just like...
Everyone leave Kingdom Hearts alone.
I like it, but by the time Kingdom Hearts 2 came out, it was like, fucking rein it in, guys. It's like,
Am I right in saying with 12 that was originally going to be an older protagonist? Like the main character was going to be older.
You do start off as Van's older brother, is it? Or something like that.
Transit.
The beginning of the game.
Van's brother is... but it's confusing because there's Bash von Ronsenberg.
Right, okay,
His brother's also
That's such a good name.
Such a porno name.
Yeah.
Bash one.
Hi, my name's Bash von Ronsenberg.
Like BASCH, 8 U's, so on and so
Based.
forth. Based. I think his brother's somewhere, but his brother turns out to be a murderer, and he gets framed. It's a whole big mess of stuff, and there's a great big crystal happening as well. So,
did you? I suppose you wouldn't have because it was only in Japan. But in the Japanese international version, they changed the gambit system up, and that's the version that they're releasing in HD.
and I'm excited to see that because I like the gambit system. It meant you could
Zodiac.
essentially go to
Zodiac.
school and
Zodiac,
leave it
yeah.
on and come back, and your characters were much stronger.
Because you could pretty much just automate the whole, like you could go in the fight and just leave it to do its own thing.
Yeah.
And if you'd set up your gambits right.
Yeah, just blue tack the moving controller.
So do you think?
It's the great misunderstood Final Fantasy.
I would say so, yeah.
Retrospectively, people, it's come into fashion.
Yeah.
So where does it sit then? Is it better than Final Fantasy 2?
Yeah, I'm going to put it quite high up.
Better than Final Fantasy 1?
Yeah.
Better than 3?
Yeah, I really like it.
Better than 8?
This is hard because then it's going to be better than 10
Better than
probably,
10.
and I don't think it story wise for me it's not better than 10. And story's why I love Final Fantasy.
I'm not sure it's better than 10, but I feel like it deserves to be higher
Yeah,
on the
this
list
is
because
the
it
thing.
might encourage
So
people.
it's
to play it.
not higher than 5 though. No, you wouldn't put it higher than 5 because 5 is above 10.
I'd say can you put it on the same level with 10?
Right,
This is a pending rating though,
Okay, we'll
'cause
break it then. So we'll break the rules first. So 12 is equal to 10, which is between 5 and 8.
this is pending though. We
Right.
should all replay it and see what we think.
So next.
Oh,
Right, no, so before we get into it, Joe, what is the difference between a Lassie
And a foul.
and a
don't
Falsey?
even start by the way because I can't. It's
A falsy is.
because every line of dialogue in that game is something to do with being Pulse Lassie, to being Lassie. There's nothing that says we are defined characters
wait.
with any
Was
kind
Pulse
of
good or bad?
apart from I'm Hope. I'm really miserable that Snow accidentally killed my mum, but he didn't really.
Hope is one of the worst
Those two
characters.
characters are the worst
Right.
characters in any video game.
Just in case you.
Has it got the worst named characters?
What Final Fantasy
Hope and
13 needs
Snow.
is it needs a character.
Lightning.
It needs a character in there who's basically the protagonist who turns around to the camera every 5 seconds and goes, "What the fuck is going on? Who are you?
But the thing is,
Who the fuck? What's wrong with you? Why? What's happening?"
But
Or
Final
someone
Fantasy
just to do,
10
like,
Final
Parks
Fantasy
and
10
Rec
had
style
that, and it was
reactions.
fucking annoying.
Final Fantasy 10, Final Fantasy 13 is an attempt to redo Final Fantasy 10
Yeah.
and fail on every
Right.
fucking
I
possible
think
thing.
I'm
Lightning
not
is a
gonna
great
allow this.
character.
Right.
I'll put it out there.
Wait a
Lightning's a good character.
Okay. Final Fantasy 13 was the first HD Final Fantasy game. This is our introduction just in case people don't know what we're talking about, right? But at the time, it got a lot of criticism for being very linear for the first 30 fucking hours, and then it opened up, and then it closed itself back again. So, right. How, have we all played Final Fantasy?
Yes.
13?
Yes.
How
Yes.
far have we gotten?
I've
Final
played it
Fantasy
through
13?
twice now.
I
Right,
got
okay.
to the open world bit and turned it off.
Right, who did you get? By?
I think I got pretty close to the end.
Right.
I've not completed it, but
Okay. So
I did most of the Pulse missions.
let's start.
So was that the good? Was Pulse good or bad?
Pulse is a bit.
Pulse is Monster Hunter, but
Right. let's start positively. What is there anything we like about Final Fantasy XIII?
It looks very good.
There's a couple of bits of music that are good, but actually it suffers from being.
I think it's got the best battle theme.
The battle theme's
I
great.
love the battle theme.
Battle theme's great.
That's Joe's theme tune.
It's
Yeah.
so good.
The battle theme's great, but apart from that, everything else feels like background music.
I hated the battle system.
Really? I see. I
Paradigm
love.
shift.
I was
like the
actually
battle
going to
system.
say I actually quite liked how you assigned those kind of roles and how it played out. It was kind of like a version of the job system,
Yeah,
but
it was
taken to a different.
I felt like it was an
kinda-
arcade version of the job system.
Yeah,
It was
I actually kind of enjoyed that.
I hated how the first time you changed roles, it took longer and your enemies could whap in a couple
Yeah.
of hits. And then
Yeah.
every time from then, it's just
Yeah.
snap,
Yeah.
done.
I feel like even after I definitely understood the battle system, there was a lot of times where I was just getting killed by just generic enemies.
Well, I
Like,
found
why is this happening?
when it goes from being like the corridor game. So the first 30 hours of the game where you're just going from
Then
bit
you,
to bit.
it's like you're running along the corridor, then at the end of the corridor you fight a big head, and then you're in a field. And then
Yeah, it's like when that happened, suddenly I went from like doing quite well against the bosses and fights. And the first time I fought like I don't know a big cow, I just like it literally killed my whole team. And then I thought, no, that can't be right. So I avoided the big cows and then fought like I don't know a rabbit, and the rabbit wiped me. And it just was like so suddenly I'm under leveled to do this bit of the game, but I was fine to fight the boss 5 minutes ago. But suddenly I'm struggling to get across a field.
So
And I
yeah,
was like,
I like that. That's something that very much happened in Final Fantasy XIII and Xenoblade, and now happened
if it started,
more in
but if it was like
Xenoblade
that
X.
at the beginning, like for example, Xenoblade. I mean, the combat system's a bit. I mean, I don't want to compare the two because one I really enjoy, and the other one's Final Fantasy XIII. But like, if it had been like that from the off, then I'd have felt like, oh, fair enough. But just suddenly putting me in that place where I was like, how am I so weak compared to
I
everything
feel
else
like
around me?
again, you'll never know what happens internally at Square, but see that like you go down a corridor and then you go to a big field. That reeks of development issues to me.
Yeah.
That's like we basically made 2 games because we had a lot of problems in development. But we'll never know.
Yeah.
They've styled it out enough to sell. It went platinum, so they must have.
Yeah, I mean there are bits of it that I do enjoy. I mean, as I said, I can't think of a single character from that game apart from Lightning that I think, oh, I actually like this person.
Saz was alright.
I like
Was-
Saz.
yeah,
I like-
he
I
was
like
okay,
Saz.
but
he was too
I like-
mopey.
Is he the guy with
Oh,
the
my
afro
son. Oh, my poor son.
with the wee bird in
Oh,
his
my
hair?
son.
Yeah.
Aye,
I
no,
like Saz. I like
no.
Saz.
Liked his car.
he was perfect.
Yeah.
I like cars cool.
Different
I like the cutscene where they all sort of go back to Cocoon and they're all driving the. They don't know the kind of wipeout style race.
Yeah.
Was Cocoon good or bad?
Well, you know, the good people live there.
When
Who knows?
when absolutely fabulous Crystal Nova Crystallis was happening, there was all a chat about how like people live on the inside of Cocoon and then there are people who live on the outside of Cocoon, and then Versus 13 is this thing that happens in like another world, and then you played the game and you were like, what the fuck is happening? It's like, I don't understand.
What's fun, yeah, it's weird. Like Final Fantasy, when you play the 13-2 and Lightning Returns, like the story goes even more, anime pish crazy. So if you didn't enjoy it in Final Fantasy 13, I would avoid the sequels.
I don't like.
Even if the
I
gameplay does get
love
better.
shit anime, but it just made no sense.
It made no sense.
And it was-
even though
it-
they tried to establish it, every line
Aye.
of dialogue, it made no
Yeah.
sense.
It was doing all these big, like, hugely dramatic moments, like really overblown stuff that you couldn't be in because you had no fucking idea what was going on.
I mean, you should have felt for what was going on with these characters, like poor Zats and his son. Oh, that's so bad. And Vanille's going through this whole guilt-ridden thing about her and Fang, and you're like, I wish I gave a crap, but I can't because you don't give me a chance to get to know
I quite
you.
like Vanille because I fucking love Kylie Minogue. In my head, she was basically Kylie Minogue. I just assigned her that role.
Do you know what could have done with? You were saying at the beginning a character just to turn to the screen. See if one of the playable characters had been, I don't mean this in a bad way, geriatric, right? So one person who just every 5 minutes or so like forgot what had just happened, and it's like, son, who is that?
What's happening?
And then
It's
what's
like
happening?
An old
Where
man
am I?
with a cloud haircut.
Yeah, see if somehow they could have put Cloud as an old man in it and just have him every so often. Lightning would have to turn his right, Cloud. This is what's happened.
But that's what they
You
tried
could
to
use-
do with the basic plot, though, and I don't think they ever got it out. Like,
Or a dictionary. See if you had a like it came a wee book and right. So a
There is a
falsi
glossary in
is
the
this.
game, but
Yeah.
it's
Ah,
not
but
worth
it's
it.
Jesus.
it's not worth it. It's not like I mean, I know we're in a Final Fantasy thing. It's not like an Elder Scrolls game where
Yeah.
you get a lot out of reading about the lore of the world. Like, there's so much to do with this pantheon of gods and all this kind of other stuff. This is just a great big mess of crystal fucking weirdos.
They should have given it to you with a novel. You know, like when
Yeah.
you play Nino Kuni and you got the special edition with the
Oh,
Wizard's
it's so
book.
good.
Aye.
13 was one of those games where, like, I remember Square saying beforehand, "Oh, we've listened to Western gamers and we've tried to put a bit of Western influence in it. But
So it's our fault.
well, no, I didn't really feel like that.
Japanese
I know
game
it felt
of the
like
long
something you
time,
could
like-
watch. I was going to say something you watch on telly. It doesn't. Final Fantasy XIII feels like a game that's happening on a screen as you're walking through Shinjuku, surrounded by people.
Yeah.
And no, it feels like a game that you're watching on a tiny. You're in Don Quixote. You're looking at all the Tengas. And a wee screen, and Final Fantasy XIII is happening on this screen,
It's happening on a Tenga.
Right.
basically.
Okay.
So,
So despite the fact that I love
Joe,
Final
I
Fantasy
really
13,
don't
I'm
like
sorry,
it.
Joe.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Right.
So it's the best one.
But is it better than Final Fantasy 2?
I think it's like because, in fairness, it's a big, massive game. There's lots of things right. I can see why people enjoy it, but there is so much wrong with it. I find it so offensive that I can happily say, to me, it is the worst one.
You were a bit right. Joe was getting like, and then you were like, but there's so much right. And Joe was like sitting a bit higher on his chair, and then you were like, however, it has some of the worst things. And he was slumping
I
back
swear,
down.
I've never resented the time I spent with a game. More than Final Fantasy 13. I got to the end and felt nothing.
Yeah.
It had given me nothing back.
I
from
just,
the time.
like I've said, one of the big things for Final Fantasy for me is, again, a game telling me a story and having me go along on that story with these characters who are really rich and varied. I got nothing. I got none of that, and I got really frustrated. I turned the game off
Are you
8
two
times.
genuinely saying it's the worst Final Fantasy game?
For me, it's the worst. It's the one. It's the
Right.
first time I felt maybe 12 maybe didn't hit the mark, and 10 was missing some stuff. I felt it's the first time I felt betrayed by a game series that I love so much, and that's entitled and that's stupid, and I get that, but I felt betrayed.
It was all growing up. It was always the big series.
Yeah.
And 13 was like, it's gone.
Yeah,
The big series.
I gave up.
It's gone.
God is dead.
Gave up.
Like I don't want to lay this on too thick, but no game has left me feeling as cold inside as Final Fantasy 13 did, honestly. It's the most superficial, and JRPGs are a superficial genre where it's just like fucking flashing lights. It's like flashing lights and tits happening at you for 100 hours. But 13 is the worst of them all to me.
Right.
Agree. I felt really let down.
I think.
Can we make it equal bottom? With 2.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Yeah, well, it's hard for me because I've not played a lot of the other ones, but I think it is a pretty bad
It's the pits.
I'm
game.
going to put it equal bottom with Final Fantasy 2 then.
No.
I find that very
below.
offensive.
It's a game that can only really be enjoyed by war criminals and sex offenders.
Right, well, that's all the main series done then.
We know. Oh well,
14.
of course, an honourable mention for 14,
14, which is-
alongside
I played
11 as
14.
well.
Yeah.
14 started out actually really enjoyable. I hate MMOs because I hate other human beings. Mostly, so it was quite difficult to have all these people jumping around being weird. But it was the first one that felt like a Final Fantasy game to me. I was playing as this white mage character, and I was really getting into RPing, like role playing in my head, and really enjoying this character I'd built. And then I got this great new armor, which was a metal thong.
Right.
I was like, right, this is going off.
Yeah.
I'm not paying for this. I'm not paying for a game.
You're
where
like,
my-
can I put this on my chocobo?
I'm not paying for a game where my super classy character's gonna walk around in a metal thong.
Is this when Final Fantasy 14 was first released, or is it the Realm Reborn version?
Heaven's
Reborn.
Ward or that? Oh, the Realm Reborn was first.
Aye. So
Realm Reborn.
That was a
Yeah.
ballsy move, being like,
Well,
right,
I-
our game's
but-
shit. We're going to
we're
remake.
literally going
And
to
I think
destroy
it
the
paid
world
off
and then
because
went-
it plays really well. I mean,
everybody
you can-
talks about how good it is now.
Yeah,
Like,
it's really enjoyable, but the armor design for female characters is far too 14-year-old wanking in a garage.
Can you only be humans in it? Or
no,
can you
you
be?
can be the little guys, I think, as well, and other things.
Hobbits.
Aye, the wee, whatever
Whatever those wee guys are called.
Hobbits?
with the wee nose.
Yeah. Boop. Yeah, no, you can be.
Can you
various
go
things.
Red 13s?
No.
It's one of those things. When I saw it,
They
I was
were
like,
extinct.
I'm going to play FF14. I'm going to play a dragoon, and then someone was like, you'll be playing for like 150 hours until you can actually get like the kind of cane looking
Yeah.
armor. And I was like,
Yeah.
I withdrew. That was me withdrawing from the table.
Yeah.
So we've done all the main games.
Yep.
Should we go through the list? So
Can we talk about 15?
Can we talk?
Well,
about
I was just going to get.
my only impression of 15 so far are the 2 demos and Kingsglaive. Now, the 2 demos I found thoroughly enjoyable. Kingsglaive I found to be a literal interpretation of the phrase, well, excuse me, princess, from the Zelda version. Because, like, literally, they spend the whole movie helping this one female character that's been introduced into the game. There's another 2 female characters, but one of them dies, and the other one doesn't have a line.
Right.
And I was just, I can't handle where are the women. Final Fantasy has been this great game series built up by the female characters in it, and where the hell are they?
Well, this is the thing. Final Fantasy has no excuse now because other JRPG franchises have kind of learned that people don't take just shitty women characters anymore.
yeah,
so
I know.
and Final Fantasy knows But I mean,
if there's any game that's going to get it right, it should be Final Fantasy.
You like that mechanic,
and of
Joe?
course, the original introduction was Cindy.
We've both made our.
is her name Cindy?
Yeah.
Cindy.
Cindy.
And her dad is Sid. Grandfather Sid. And
I
the
thought
only
she was called Sid.
No,
I think originally she was called Sid.
And they bottled it.
They called her
Fuck's
Cindy. So
That's it.
I don't know.
Bottom of the pile already.
I have a lot of hope for 15. I'm already getting that great kind of friendship thing going for them, like with the 5-part anime and the demos that come before.
The anime
was great fun.
Flame roasted toast. Pretty good.
Yeah, let's get the best eggs I've seen in a game.
Oh my God, yeah.
You ever played Dizzy, mate?
Scott, you've liked Final Fantasy 15. What we've played of it so far?
We played the first hour, which you can see in our impressions video.
Yeah.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
I've enjoyed the demos. I've avoided Judgment. It's Judgment Disc.
Aye, the demo.
It's the Japanese only.
Demo.
Oh, is there a new demo?
First
in
hour.
in Japan on the Japanese.
They've
PSN
pretty much
store.
released the first
It's
hour
the
or
first
so
hour
of the
half
game.
Oh, cool.
And it's like pretty much the finish.
In Japanese though, and you can't save it and carry your save over.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I probably would avoid it. And if you're looking to get, will I enjoy this game? But the opening hour of an RPG essentially is
Well,
meaningless.
no, the thing is, like, literally, as soon as you get control after like the opening cutscene, and you're at the garage, and you're meant to go and do some missions. Like, see if you just go behind the garage, there's a pit with a level 50 monster that can just kill you in one hit.
Sounds pretty good. See, I like that.
Here's the plan: we're going to go through the list, and then we're all going to take a guess of where we think Final Fantasy 15 is going to go. So,
Okay.
bottom of the list, Final Fantasy 2 equal with Final Fantasy 13.
No, if we just change that, can we move the 13
Up.
down?
Oh. Next, Final Fantasy. Just above that is Final Fantasy 3. Above that is Final Fantasy 8.
8-ish kind of level, I'd
8-ish.
say, maybe.
Above 8 is 10 and 12, who are equal.
Mm-hmm.
And above that we get into the sort of top
5
5, which is
4.
number 5, Final Fantasy 5. Number 4, Final Fantasy 4. Number 3, Final Fantasy 6. Number 2, Final Fantasy 9. And number 1, Final Fantasy 7.
I think it might come in quite middly, but that's not, even if it's great, that's not to say that it's a bad game. It's just that the ones that are there are so good.
Do you think it's got a chance to make it into the top 5? Or?
Yeah, it's definitely got a chance.
Because we don't know what I don't know anything about it.
I mean,
so
I hope, as always, I hope it's
yeah.
fucking
I
amazing.
hope it really turns everything around for me, because even Kingdom Hearts, my dear Kingdom Hearts, is a fucking mess. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. Do you think it might have... I mean, I'm hoping it breaks into the top 3. I would like it to be the great...
I'm not prepared to let it, but yeah.
There's a lot of weight that comes with those, like, for example,
JRPG.
Final Fantasy VII, for example, like, it's almost like, you know, that feeling of when you watch Star Wars when you were wee, or that thing that people say when they do a remake of a film, and they say, "Oh, it ruins my childhood." It's like the weight of Final Fantasy VII is so. It's like it warps everything in terms of the JRPG around it, because it was so big and it defined a genre for so many.
It was the first 3D one, and really they fucking knocked it out of the park with everything. But
yeah,
I feel like now it's a weird time for the JRPG, because you look at the gulf of quality in terms of stuff you have, where you have stuff like Xenoblade X, and you have stuff like New Star Ocean, which are like galaxies apart in terms of quality. And I don't mean that in terms of how they are as games and how they play, but just the attention, the sort of the mechanics behind the system, the actual engineer work that goes into building the game. And I always worry when you FF, like, how much of it is polish. Because you always got to worry how much of it's polish and how much of it is, how much game is there actually. And I don't mean that in it's not a game, but I mean like how much depth. You know, they talk about Platinum has depth. Platinum games have depth. I think a Final Fantasy game deserves to have a lot of depth again.
Absolutely.
I think as well that
I really hope
things have changed so much. I mean, like, go back a few years and the big RPGs were always Japanese. But you talk about, look at the ones that people talk about right now. It's like games like The Witcher 3, which have, I mean, it's a different type of game.
Well,
but it's for example, almost in the same way that Final Fantasy VII was like the first big JRPG. It feels like games like The Witcher 3, people are talking about them. People who don't play RPGs, who aren't interested in them, play that kind of game and love it because it's that accessible RPG. And could Final Fantasy ever get back to that point where everyone who's got a console that can play it owns it?
I think it still has that clout with people. I still see people that post Fast and Furious memes on their Facebook talking about Final Fantasy. So. But I mean, when we were Waynes, the term JRPG didn't exist.
They
were all just RPGs. Zelda was an RPG.
Yeah.
FF was an RPG.
As I got older, games like Dragon Age and Mass Effect, so BioWare, really, and the Elder Scrolls games really took over where Final Fantasy left me alone, I guess. These were games where, again, I got to fall into worlds with, I mean, less so Elder Scrolls, but with the BioWare games, you fall into worlds with really rich and great characters, and while they're not anything close to what Final Fantasy had in terms of, you know, these great qualities, they're still wonderful in their own right. And then The Witcher, again, was it was like life-affirming playing that.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Right, well, we're going to move on to people who have written in with their favourite Final Fantasy games and moments. But just before that, obviously we've been talking about the mainline series, but is there any Final Fantasy spin-offs which you think deserve an honourable mention?
Crisis Core.
Crisis Core? You enjoy that one?
I enjoy Crisis Core.
Yeah?
I enjoy Crisis Core a lot. I mean, it's not fantastic, but it really fleshes out that wee bit. That wee 2-second memory. I'm getting Barry's shaking his head at me. I enjoyed it. I did. I mean,
Genesis, mate.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not a big fan of the Final Fantasy sequel stuff because I think Cloud has gone from being this really funny, interesting character to being my name is Cloud and I'm a miserable prick, and I can't be bothered with it. I don't like.
But is the game
face character
good though? Like,
the game is
nice.
no.
No,
the mechanics of it aren't great,
yeah.
but I like that. I mean, you can almost ignore parts of it, but I like that it fleshes out that 5-minute segment you get when you go down to the Shinra Mansion in Disc 3.
Right.
It's a game built on that.
It's symptomatic of, it's like they know how to fucking milk it, and they milked Final Fantasy till, especially Final Fantasy VII, until it was just
a dirge.
There used to be a certain quality that you got from an FF game, and then shit like Dirge of Cerberus started coming out, and it was like there are now more bad Final Fantasy games than
I thought you were
Final
making a
Fantasy
motion
games.
of slitting your wrist. Well,
that would be in keeping with the themes of the Vincent Valentine video game.
Scott, what any Final Fantasy spin-offs that you've played?
Tactics, the first Final Fantasy Tactics. You can recruit Cloud in it as well. So
both Tactics games are incredible.
Does Bravely Default count? Is that technically count as a spin-off?
No, it's not the.
Was it originally meant to be a sequel to?
I don't know if Vagrant Story would that count?
It's part of the same world.
Yeah. I mean, Mansel's probably
of all the Final Fantasy games, you wouldn't be like, "Oh, Vagrant Story's really good."
Probably, I quite liked, even though it's the furthest away from an actual proper Final Fantasy game, and it was essentially a Monster Hunter clone. I quite liked
Explorers.
Yeah, I thought Explorers was good fun. Yeah. It was a nice way to
however, it is part
apply.
It's part of what Barry was saying of them just milking the Final Fantasy name. Like, I think it's a good game, but
it
doesn't need to be a Final Fantasy game.
I think about it in the same way that maybe Dragon Quest Builders milks the Dragon Quest, because you know what I mean. That's you wouldn't ever, if you're talking about core Dragon Quest games.
You're forgetting the big difference here, Scott. Though Dragon Quest and its vast number of spin-offs, there is not a total fucking shitter among them. Whereas the Final Fantasy spin-offs are horrible. Mostly. I mean, that sounds harsh, but
I mean,
there are some bad Dragon Quest spin-offs, but
I just mean in terms of Explorers. Just because it was quite a competent,
it's a great
fun game.
I love Explorers.
I mean, don't get me wrong, Dragon Quest Builders is one of the best games of the year.
There's a real difference between milking something and just making more fun things.
Yeah.
Whereas when Final Fantasy VII got a movie and a prequel and then a sequel, and
a remake.
Now it's finally getting a remake, which will finally destroy it once again. Because I've said this, and people are probably fucking sick of hearing me say it, but of all the FF7 stuff, the game Final Fantasy VII is the only thing that has a bit of fucking personality. And now it's going to be plucked from that and replaced with Nomura's Bishy Nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean, that will be it.
I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it
as well.
I'm going to play it. I'm going to hate every fucking...
I do think if you're going to buy a Final Fantasy game, a Final Fantasy VII version, get the PS4.
They can hand me a poop on a sandwich shaped like Cloud and say, "Here you go, it's £50." And I'd be like, "I'll have 5, please." Please.
At least we know it'll be better than 13.
Yeah.
I'm just worried it's going to be charmless because it's hard to play an RPG that is charmless.
As I said, I'm really worried about, because you've got Cloud who dresses up as a woman to go save Ares. To go save Tifa from a weird rapey Italian guy.
It's Don Corneo Italian.
And then you go on that date and you get to be in the play, and you can choose to either kiss Ares or Tifa or Yuffie or whoever the hell you get, or kiss the dragon. And you kiss the dragon. It's just a fun wee bit. And Cloud has a lot of humor bits in the game, and he doesn't really take it lying down.
Because I mean, when they announce it, you're like, oh, there's such a legacy there. Surely they're going to protect it. And then they're like, hey guys, it's going to be episodic. Okay. The first nail. Dunk.
But think about how good that bit where Cloud knocks the barrels down. Imagine how good that'll look in super HD.
We asked you to write in with your favourite Final Fantasy games and moments, and we're going to read out a few of them, and if you read yours out, you'll win a wee goodie bag of Final Fantasy 15 stuff that Square have sent us, which is very nice of them. So Facebook first. Let's go through these here. So Laura Hobson, she says 9 and 5 are my favourites. They both have my favourite strong female characters, Freya in 9 and Faris in 5. And
Faris is amazing.
in general, I think Final Fantasy has always given time for strong female characters. There's Terra, Tifa, Quistis, Lightning, the list goes on. Yeah.
Agree entirely. Yeah, it's what I was saying earlier.
And add Cindy to that list.
Yeah, it's what I was saying earlier about having these great female characters in the games that never really felt like they were tacked on to be the strong female character. They were just part of the story.
The thing about Lightning is definitely a strong woman, but unfortunately a strong woman with no personality.
She does get more interesting
when she goes to Paris.
Becomes
she's a fucking model now.
Yeah,
she's a real life model.
This isn't James Quigley. He says 7 was my first and remains my favourite, but I'm also a fan of X2. It's a solid game despite the flack it gets, mostly due to its lighter tone. Plus, it has that massage minigame.
Oh yeah, the massage minigame, which I was just amazed was even in there. But it's 10-2 is wonderful.
I've not played it yet because I've not finished 10 yet. But
it's silly and wonderful.
You're one of the few people I know who sticks up.
It's
for
really good.
It's like playing a Sailor Moon game. It's great. You spend half your time just changing outfits. And you don't even care that it changes your abilities. You're like, I want to see what this outfit looks like.
In a world that was so My Chemical Romance first time around, it's like they made it fun, like really, really fun. And just kinda, haha! It's Final Fantasy X, we're back.
But then it hits you with these. I mean, you get the whole Evil Tidus stuff. And,
totally Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, but I keep saying this. If you think I just cry at everything, but that 1,000 words, man, like a knife in the chest. If it comes on my Spotify random, I have to skip. I don't want to cry in the butter aisle.
Can I just say the best Final Fantasy spin-off, or one of them she definitely plays, Guys on the PS1.
Oh, fuck! Yes! I've never played that in a real one.
Kind of counts. Yeah. It's the fighting game. You get Cloud.
Yeah.
You get Vincent in his Turks outfit, which is quite a deep cut for back then.
Yeah.
Obviously now Vincent.
You get Tifa, which was all I cared about.
Right. Why did I think that Vincent was a vampire?
Because you find him in a coffin. He is pretty much a vampire. He turns into various monsters.
Right.
One of whom is some sort of bat creature thing.
Yeah.
I'm glad I hadn't
dreamt
it.
It's reasonable to call him a vampire.
Yeah.
Right, Ben Bunn
reasonable.
Ben Bunn says, the moment that really blew my mind was the bit in Final Fantasy VII where you got to the arcade and you can replay all the sweet minigames. Motorbike, snowboarding, and the other ones that nobody cares about.
Fuck you, man. Moghouse is the best one.
Moghouse is great.
Moghouse is better than some full Final Fantasy games. You
got 10 GP for that. Right?
Which
you needed. You needed that GP.
See, Moghouse is such a fucking beautiful wee thing. I want Moghouse played at my funeral. I want one of you to come and play at my funeral.
Okay, happily.
The idea of having games within the game set a precedent for an awesome experience. When I encountered this again in Shenmue and Yakuza, it always gave a real sense of scale.
Is this guy you?
What's his name? No, but he pretty much is us. Okay, right. There's this one.
Mojeric.
Right, there's this one from Mike Fisher, who is it's a really long entry thing he's written, so I'm not going to read the whole thing out. But basically, he talks about his experience with Final Fantasy XIV and how important it was to him, like even before they just destroyed the world and brought it back. And it's actually quite a good wee story of him getting together with all his pals during the end of that game. Just to experience what the end of the server was going to be like and all that.
Yeah,
that sounds so cool.
It was a pretty good story, so definitely deserving of a wee Final Fantasy 15 goodie bag.
It doesn't deserve being read out, but
I just can't read the whole thing out because we'll be here for the rest of the night.
How many have you done so far?
That's 4 so far.
Cool.
You win an award, suddenly can't be bored with your fans anymore.
Right?
I tell you what, if you read,
Won the award
you read a couple of Twitter, I'll find the last one on
Okay, so have a wee look at Twitter. Let's just have a wee look.
Chocobo Racing. Give that a shot.
Oh, I love chocobo racing. I used to be really good at it, and I love breeding chocobos.
They brought it back
so much fun.
Again.
They brought it back for 13 too.
Everything that's in FF7, Chocobo Racing, the breeding, fun and robust.
Yeah.
All right, wait. I found the last one that I was going to.
Okay, you do yours and then I'll do.
So Pat Buckler, he says weirdly Crystal Chronicles because it was the first one that I played.
Right there with him on that.
Crystal Chronicles.
The graphics were beautiful,
yeah,
and I'd never played a game that felt like such a big adventure, especially as I was obsessed with Lord of the Rings at the time. The game wasn't that great thinking about it because carrying the lantern around.
Well, I was going to say you would, if at this table Joe would be carrying the chalice, like Joe would be encumbered forever with the chalice.
Why? Why is that?
Just because somebody always had to carry the chalice.
Yeah,
you wouldn't let it be,
and it became a bit of a joke.
My twin brother and I, we don't spend a lot of time together, but we that was something we did play together.
Did you play it with the Game Boy Advances and the GameCube?
Yeah,
because I've always wanted to do that. I've always wanted
you
to
got a twin brother, right?
Yeah.
Can you play the organ?
No.
I've always wanted to play Crystal Chronicles in a group the way it was meant to be played with the Game Boy Advances, like with four swords, like that. But I've just never had a chance to. So, right. So Twitter.
Okay, so first up we've got Ross Manthorpe, who says my partner got me into Final Fantasy around the time of 10, and I've slowly been playing back through them. 6 is my absolute favourite. So anyone claiming that the games are nostalgia or doesn't play well today are wrong. First played it a few years ago and it's masterful.
That's good.
I like what you said there. Because see, there's a lot of stuff nowadays when people go back to older games and say, "Oh, it's dated or it's not."
Yeah,
as much
you
fun
hate
nowadays."
this, chat.
I hate it because I feel like good games tend to be good forever. Like
I agree, but see, the thing is, Joe.
Yeah.
Sometimes
you don't like a game with me.
No, sometimes you have to go back and say to yourself, "Wait, this is actually a bad game."
No, but I think even like for the time, you can appreciate what's good and bad when you played them. And I don't think nostalgia is that powerful.
See, like I really don't like being negative about stuff, especially stuff like fucking cares.
Yeah.
Apart from Final Fantasy XIII, of course. But like constantly, I find myself going back and playing games and like honestly being like, something like Wild Arms, like you were saying, like great story, but I know it's just like. Because, like, I don't like saying it because folk fucking love it, but I felt Lost Odyssey was a bit like that. Went back and replayed it, and the battle system again is just a bit like...
I think I still have your copy of that, Scott.
Well, I don't have an Xbox anymore.
Oh, that's fine. Well,
it's
I've
just
got my copy now.
Well, the first time through something, you can be like, that's a great game, but, you go back and replay it, and if it's a really good game, then you should have either the same or a better experience.
Yeah. The most one's when folk play Ocarina of Time and say, "Oh, it's full of dated decisions."
Oh no, they can bugger off.
Ocarina of Time is still,
it's wonderful.
For me, the best game I've made. Right, let's move
on. So let's have a look. Here's a good one. This is from Jack Kempster. It says, playing Final Fantasy X when I was younger and praying my dad didn't see me select yes when I was asked if I had a crush on Yuna.
That's so
good.
Cute.
That's good.
Bet you did.
Remember when they...
Your old Alex Lily.
Remember when they changed the look of Yuna for 10-2 instead of being like the sort of summoner priestess look, they sort of gave her a pair of hot pants and a set of guns.
Yeah,
like,
it was pretty
awesome. What was that about? Oh yeah, it's cool.
Dress fears, man. That's what
dress fears. That was it. It was so good.
Flame Returns brings that back, actually, the dressing system.
Your dad pretends he likes Lily, but then he goes to bed and thinks about Wacka until he comes up.
Next we've got Bin Diesel, minute 5072. 8 has always been my favourite. It may not be the best one, but it was the first I played, and I made one of my best friends when I was growing up by chatting about that game.
Best friend, Squall.
The big school. By chatting about that game and discussing secrets and strategies. It will always have a warm place in my heart.
The big school.
We don't
say Balam Garden with his who's your favourite character? The school. The boat school.
Well, the school was kind of alive.
We don't talk anymore, but I'll always have those memories. And the strategy guide, I forgot to give him back. So I'd say that's nice. Yeah. Games bringing people together and then eventually letting them drift apart.
I saw Barry's face screw up when you said 8 there, but
I know, Stuart. It makes a lot of sense.
Anymore. We've had quite a lot of comments in this, so I'm sorry that we haven't enough to give away to everybody. But
here's another one on Twitter.
This guy are sick.
This is from Tom, who says, in Final Fantasy VII, I decided after finishing the game to take on Ruby Weapon. Cloud disappeared beneath sand. Vincent turned into a frog. I started laughing, turned the game off, and I've never played it since.
Frog is the best.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I like when you try to run away as a frog and you just like little frogs just hopping about.
That's good stuff.
You can't see we were all bouncing up and down in our chairs there.
You probably hear it on the
you'll definitely hear it.
Right, so we've got one more.
And last one. Just have a look. There's lots of good ones.
You just picking?
I just picked my favourites.
Just picking people that live near, so you don't need to post them.
Yeah.
Oh Christ!
Oh God!
I picked anyone from Sweden.
We had that Metal Gear Solid competition a few years ago, and one of the winners was in America, and the other was in Australia.
Oh my God!
Fuck's sake! Didn't one of them not get back to us? Like we sent them a message and they never got back. We sent somebody else. I'm sure.
No.
You did like a Facebook thing. Local pickup, Motherwell. Right.
Half our window, otherwise it's mine.
Okay, and last one, we're going to go with Kieran Winter. Favorite moment, Final Fantasy VI, when you go to be, is it Kefka?
Yeah,
Kefka. And feel amazing, then realise he's been stalling and destroys the world anyway. that just caused utter disbelief. Also follows up by saying, on Final Fantasy X, when Tidus meets Jecht,
Jecht.
At the end, trying to vent all his anger while being upset, realising what has to be done.
I like how Final Fantasy X is your dad's the fish. And
Son, your dad's a fish.
And that's us got to the end of our Final Fantasy special.
We're going to do...
That's not the
BitSocket theme.
But is it the... Or is it the Final Fantasy VII same note over and over and over again?
It's the BitSocket theme.
BitSocket theme. I need to make that, actually.
Yeah, do that, please.
I said Barry's the one that does the music for us, so...
You're fine. Yours are good. You can play a piano. You know what you're doing.
So at this, I'd like to say thanks to Barry and Andy for helping us out.
Very welcome.
With,
It's the most concise podcast thing I've ever been part of. Like,
This has been great fun.
not even going to edit it. Just bang it up tonight.
Might not need to. Just take it in my coffin.
Can I look at the list?
So, so the reason we're doing Final Fantasy Month is because Final Fantasy XV is finally coming out soon after 10 years of waiting. So if you check out our YouTube channel, you find we've done a review of World of Final Fantasy. We've got a video from the first hour of Final Fantasy XV. We did a stream of Final Fantasy VII the other night, didn't we?
Yeah, we played Final Fantasy VII. It's our escape from Midgar.
Yeah.
So
it's 4 hours of fun.
4 hours. Spread across 2 videos because it stopped working after 40 minutes, which was great fun. We've also done 2 episodes of our film club. So today we had our episode Final Fantasy VII Advent Children. Went up.
And last week we did Spirits Within.
And so you can watch those videos. They're about 12 minutes.
They're about 12 or 15 minutes long, but you can also listen to the full audio commentary.
Imagine that. You could stick Advent Children on the TV, the DVD version, and listen to us talk all the way through it.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine.
Yep, and because I've been playing Final Fantasy 1 a lot recently, I'm going to be doing a wee retrospective of that. And we've got other things planned as well up until the release of Final Fantasy 15. So, with all that said, it's just, I think the only thing left to say is... Keep it socking.